general topics, sweeping over everything the podcast is going to be capable of doing. And, well, today we're going to be diving in just a little bit deeper because I have with me a very handsome gentleman by the name of Derek Ramsey, friend of mine, former coworker of mine. And I also have coming back with me for today, I have Mr. Chris Raba. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Derek, how do you know the two of us?
That's a bit of a story, huh? Well, it's a podcast. Might as well fucking make it long. I met you guys. We worked together. Well, Chris and I actually didn't officially work together, but we were under the same umbrella. It's kind of how I like to think of it.
Correct.
You're part of the same family.
Same family, yeah.
Yes.
So there are sister bars in beautiful Glendale, California, right next door to each other. And Raba worked at the upstairs bar, which is more of a craft-themed cocktail bar. We'll leave the name out of it, just for any other reason.
Well, I think they know which one we're talking about with that one.
Oh, did you guys already talk about it in the first episode?
Yeah.
Okay. So the famous.
Well, we brushed over it a little bit. Yeah,
the famous, shout out. And then I worked at the downstairs bar, the basement bar, which is the Moose Den at that time. And that was more of a craft beer / dive bar kind of feel to it. It was almost like if you could picture your best friend's basement and he happened to have 24 tap handles in his basement. That's kind of what the Moose Den was. It's kind of what the Moose Den was.
That was the style that it was originally being designed
exactly.
for.
And then it turned into something that was not of my liking, personally.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, too, in the world of podcasting, you were kind of the person that introduced us to what the world of podcasting was. And I want to get into a little bit more of this in a little bit. Yeah. But you were also the host of the Long-Winded Spiel podcast.
Yeah, Long-Winded Spiel. We're available on iTunes, Stitcher, Peepa. So
you'll be able to have plenty. You'll have plenty of time to plug that later. We're going to talk.
We want to plug it throughout the entire time. We just want to let you know that.
I mean that you're allowed to do that too.
I'm kidding. But no, yeah. So that's how I met Chris. Andrew and I actually worked together. Mm-hmm. We worked together for like what?
3 years.
3 years. Damn. A solid 3 years or just shot?
A solid 3 years.
Damn, 3 years, man.
Yeah, because it was November. It was November 2017. Yeah. No, sorry, 2016.
I gotcha.
No. 2015. God,
okay.
It was that long ago.
That's crazy, man.
It was that long ago.
Yeah, so you and I worked for 3 years. Chris and I never actually worked together, but there were a couple times we got to hang out, which was a lot of fun.
A lot of crossover.
Yeah, a lot of crossover. The one time that really sticks out to me was when I kind of considered like, okay, Chris is more than somebody I know. He's kind of like a buddy now. Was when we had that epic game of cornhole on the stage at the Moose Den. I don't know if you remember that. It was. I forget.
I don't remember this.
You don't remember that? Yeah, no. It was like an epic game of cornhole. I remember you saying, by you I mean Chris. I remember Chris saying, I don't actually play cornhole, man, but I don't know if I want to play. Your girlfriend was there at the time also. And I remember saying, I don't know, I guess I kind of like hyped you up and we played the game. And then I remember Andrew came over to me and was like, I just want to let you know, man, like, I don't know what you said to Chris, but he usually doesn't play these kind of games, so like he must like you. And I was like, oh, dude, that's fucking awesome, man. Like, and that's kind of the moment where I kind of felt as if you and I kind of became buddies. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
Chris, and I think I lost that game. I'm pretty sure I lost that game.
Chris doesn't turn down a challenge just as
for
a
sure.
rule.
Yeah, I'm
that's
pretty.
And
I'm a sucker for that.
It comes to games too, like. You know, whenever I wanted to get Chris to play a game of beer pong with me, all I had to do is just talk a little bit of shit.
And then all of a sudden...
That's all I need, just a little bit of shit.
Yeah, that's all I need.
Plant the seed of a challenge. No, for sure. But that's how I know you guys. And then we've maintained a pretty decent relationship since then. So.
I like to think so.
I mean, yeah, I'm here, right?
You are here, that's true.
Yeah.
And you are also drinking something, sir.
Yes, dude. Please, tell us about it, man. It's delicious.
Well, I mean, this is going to be a kind of a Cinco de Mayo-ish episode. I mean, at least at the beginning, because we just finished having that holiday on Sunday.
For sure.
So I wanted to do something a little bit more tequila-like focused, but I didn't want to do like your family cocktail, because I remember you talking about that when we were on Long-Winded Spiel together.
Goddamn margaritas, man.
So we're doing, so instead of doing the margarita, we're doing one of the other, I would call it a tequila classic cocktail at this point.
Yeah, I would call it a classic. Yeah, I'm not. It kind of straddles the line between classic cocktail and modern classic, because the guy that invented it is a very old school bartender.
All right, so I have a very important question for you, because this drink is called the Paloma, and it's a very easy, anyone can make this cocktail. Yeah. All you need is 2 ounces or 1.5 ounces of good tequila. What do I mean by good tequila? It needs to be 100% de agave. Don't go get Jose Cuervo. Mm-hmm. Make sure it says 100% blue agave on the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Get a little bit of that. Get a little bit of lime juice. You could use a squeeze of lime if you want. I like a half ounce of lime juice in mine. That's what's in yours, Derek.
Tasty.
Salt on the rim of the glass. You could throw a pinch of salt in there, to quote my friend Dilo, our friend Dilo. Just a pinch of salt, man. Just a pinch of salt, man.
He was like the original Salt Bae.
Yeah.
He was like the Mr. Miyagi Salt Bae.
I can see it.
Like
pouring it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so a little bit of salt, and then you just top it with either squirt, or in this case, we use Jarritos because I think Jarritos makes a superior.
more
Yeah, the
appropriate
Jarritos,
soda.
yeah, grapefruit.
So, but I had a question for you. The original recipe, does it actually call for soda, or is it actually made originally with something else?
No, it originally calls for Mexican squirt. Just because that is much more popular in Mexico, because it was invented in, I believe, Tequila, Jalisco, Mexico.
Squirt was?
What? No. The cocktail.
The cocktail.
Sorry.
Gotcha.
So the cocktail of Paloma was invented in, I believe, the town of Tequila, Mexico.
Wow.
And Mexican squirt is more popular there than Jarritos. Jarritos is more of like actually an American-centric.
Since we can't get Mexican squirt up here very easily.
Yeah, it's true. It's difficult.
And since American squirt is not as good, American soda in general is not as good as Mexican soda.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like the corn syrup versus the real just cane sugar.
It's cheaper. I remember we had this big conversation about just American-made stuff and about how it's just gotten cheaper over the years.
Well, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, especially working in the restaurant industry as long as I have, I've noticed that the American way is very much what can we cut out so we can maximize profit, as opposed to a craft beer, a craft cocktail, a craft distillery. It's let's actually focus on the product and the quality of the product as opposed to maximizing profit. Well, profit's going to be there.
That is probably the best segue I could have possibly asked for, because that's I want to say that there's a separation between like the new American craft way and what we traditionally think of as like the American domestic way, like the big business American way. And I know we both are working in an industry now that's gone through phases of all of this now. I mean, it got really craft focused at one point, and then it's gotten a little bit more corporatized again, and then it kind of goes in phases. But craft beer is one of those big things that just exploded on the scene. I want to say about like 15, 20 years ago. 20 years ago is probably when Stone got going. I know they've done their 20th anniversary.
Sounds about right. Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah,
it's Sierra Nevada in the early 90s. I think that launched. They were one of the...
What came first, Sierra Nevada or Boston Lager?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to it.
I don't know either. So either way, I feel like those two are the ones that kind of got to go.
They are the two. The thing is that Samuel Adams, I think it's a bit fuzzier because Sam Adams was a lager, right? They are still technically a craft brewery, but I know that they lobbied hard to change the definition to like up the amount of production that was allowed still be called a craft brewery. They lobbied hard so that they can still say they are a craft brewery.
I'm loving that you guys are already jumping into this, but like in my notes when I wanted to talk about craft brew a little bit today, I did want to talk about what craft brew is today and how much different it is than when it first came out. But I want to go back. I want to dial back the clock just a little bit.
We're gonna put a pin in that Boston Lager.
No, because that's
absolutely true, man.
I don't know if you were looking at my notes. I don't know if you just read my mind, but that's definitely something that I did want to talk about. But that's later on. So, but I want to start first. Like, where did it really start, or what was it really like when it first started? Because I remember the first time I had, I think it was like either a Karl Strauss or something similar, like maybe a red hook or something. It was, I was in college, I was living with my college dorm mate, and we used to go buy beer at the CVS, and we ended up buying higher ABV beer because it was the same price as the domestic stuff, and it's like, well, we're college kids, but we're mostly just doing this for the effect.
We're just trying to get fucked up here.
Well, but then it also turned out, because back then I was one of those guys where I'm like, if I'm just looking for the effect, I'll take a couple shots and that'll be it. He's like, no. Try some of this stuff out. It tastes much better, I promise. If you don't like it, don't worry about it.
Gotcha.
So he's like, I'm buying, the way he said it, I'm buying the beer anyway. So drink what I'm buying. It was essentially the way that he prefaced that.
Right.
But I started getting into those craft ales that were first coming on the scene right around then, getting them at CVS for the same price as like the domestic stuff, and it was glorious. It was like, okay, you can buy better beer for the same price as the other stuff, and it's more potent too. It tastes better. I mean, that was what craft beer originally was to me.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I mean, my first craft beer was, I think officially it was Sam Adams. Like officially a craft beer. Like I had it, didn't like it because I was so used to drinking.
No, me neither. When I first had Sam Adams.
My go-to beer based off of just like family functions and just hanging out with buddies. and we would, skim off their parents' beer. It was either Bud Light or my favorite at the time was Corona, and I would throw a lime wedge and a lemon wedge. So essentially, it was like a beer lemonade. It's kind of what I turned it into, and it was fucking great. And that's all I knew. Like plenty
of people still love it.
Yeah, dude, for sure, man, for sure. And like my idea of a cocktail, which now I know is kind of like a spritzer, technically, is I would drink white Zinfandel and Hawaiian Punch. I would just pour a shit ton of white Zinfandel, splash of Hawaiian Punch, and I was like, this is fucking amazing.
I know Chris is looking at this too. I'd be hesitant to call Hawaiian Punch a spritzer.
No, for sure.
We all start somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I shudder when I think about some of the first quote-unquote cocktails that I made and drank.
Thank you. Yeah,
and thought, man, this is amazing, right?
I'm the first one that's thought of this, for sure.
For more on that story, you'll have to check out our episode on the Long Living Spiel. I'm trying not to overlap because I want to plug you because I want to be like, yo, wait, we did. This is our first introduction to podcasting was on your podcast,
and that was a great podcast.
No, I've listened to it. I've re-listened to it a few times.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And I happen to think that it is just an amazing episode.
It was fun. I got really drunk that day, but no, yeah. So like that was my first beer, dude. My first official beer. The next one after that, I think, was a Sierra Nevada. I'm pretty sure it's either that or Stone because I tried the Pale Ale and I know I had the Stone IPA. Fucking hated IPAs. Now I love them. Like now, I mean, I don't love them, but they're definitely.
Well, I don't want to bash Stone, but Stone is a very. They're a very particular style of IPA. They're very, very, very dry, very, very hoppy.
Yeah.
There's
much
easier ways to get into an IPA.
That West Coast style.
Yes.
They were the ones that started it.
I agree.
Yeah.
But for someone that's never had an IPA before, I would say these days you've got some easier
you got to drink a hazy,
ease
man.
yourself
Drink a hazy IPA, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I love IPAs. I mean, I'm kind of indifferent with the hazy IPAs. I like them, but I don't necessarily feel like they really have a place to be considered a hazy IPA personally. But that's just my own opinion. But aside from that, the first official craft beer that I loved, that I thought was amazing, that I would order all the time, was Fat Tire. Like, that was the beer.
Fat Tire was one of my first
Fat Tire was, I was
too.
like, dude, Fat Tire's where it's at, and everywhere I went. New Belgium. Yeah, which is funny, because Fat Tire became so popular, it turned into what 805 is doing now, where everyone thinks 805 is the name of the brewery, as opposed to Firestone that makes the beer.
Yeah.
Fat Tire was known as being the name of the beer, but people would obviously think of it as the name of the brewery.
Yeah.
So, because it was just exactly. And it's so funny how that works. Like, you see it now. Like, at least I do now. I kind of see how that trend works out, but I don't know.
Firestone had kind of an interesting trajectory because they started off. They started off doing like English style beers.
I did not know that. Okay.
Like
they had their Firestone Walker IPA, and IPAs were all the craze. Like in the early days.
Right.
Was it the Union Jack or something like that?
It was like the Union Jack, and they had like the double barrel. I think it was.
That's the one. That's the one. I'm thinking of.
Then so Firestone started off
and
doing
then, like, Velvet Merlin, I think, came out.
Yeah. Velvet Merlin and the Velvet Merkin. Man, the Velvet Merkin was so good.
Was it good?
Yeah, it's
you still haven't tried it yet.
No, I haven't.
I know.
But it's bourbon barrel aged oatmeal stout.
Yeah.
That one's really good.
I gotta try that one. All right, for sure.
Still to this day, I mean, Firestone Walker, and we there's a little bit of a prejudice now with.
They just got so big with the fucking blonde ale and all
that and the 805 launched them into like more of the mainstream market, right? That's they went like less kind of fringe style beer and like hit the mainstream with 805.
But there is that transition that craft beer has gone from being something that was just at least when I was getting started, it was amber ales, which I couldn't find anywhere else. Red ales, which are still to this day one of my absolute favorites.
Fuck yeah, me too, man.
And IPAs. IPAs were like the big thing that everyone wanted in the early days when it was first getting started. Everyone had an IPA.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like anyone that wanted to call themselves a craft brewery had to have some kind of IPA or you weren't even taken seriously.
Exactly.
I used to remember people going up and down the aisles at like Bevmo and being just like, oh, what kind of IPAs do they got? And IPA, in those days, they were using that synonymously with craft beer. What they meant was craft beer. What they were saying were IPAs. And even when we were working, like, it's kind of changed a little bit since then. But I remember back in like 2016, 2017, people coming in, and we used to joke about this all the time. Yo, what kind of IPAs you got?
Yeah.
And what they said IPAs, but what they meant, what kind of craft beer do you have? Because it was so synonymous with the craft beer movement at the time because it was by far the most popular genre. And I think there's a lot of obvious reasons for that. It's it's just it's as different as you can get from like a traditional domestic like lager.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can have a craft lager now. That's a thing. But like the IPA, I think the IPA was, dude. Like personally, I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying when we first got on the topic, as far as like when you go out with your buddies and you would look at price point, alcohol percentage.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I still see it. Guys are going out looking at IPAs because typically they're the highest ABV. They're around 7.75, and they're around the same price as a brown ale, a blonde. Because nowadays, at least for me, like, because of what I'm doing for work now, when I go into a bar, the first thing I look at is their tap handles. And I see the same thing everywhere I go. You see one or two domestic beer tap handles. So you see like a Bud Light, Coors Light, Modelo, etc. But that's all you'll see. And you'll see 80% of the rest of the handles are all craft beer. But 20 to 30% of those are IPAs. So people are still going for IPAs, not necessarily because they love IPAs, but because of the high ABV level. And typically those are the same price as, they'll have a craft lager, a craft blonde, a craft brown ale, an imperial stout.
And I think
but the IPAs are what they usually go to.
I think that just kind of follows like the way people
just want to get drunk, man.
Well,
that's what I'm trying to say.
They
just want to get fucked up, dude.
To my own detriment, I want to give some people the benefit of the doubt. I want to say that that's something that's more common with people that just turned 21. So you'd
be surprised, brother. You'd be surprised. I've seen, there's even deep in their 40s, they're like, I want a Boilermaker, dude. Give me a shot of your cheapest whiskey, not because it tastes great, but because it's cheap.
Well, if they're in their 40s,
30s, I'm just throwing
if they're in their 40s and they're drinking craft brew to get drunk, I think they're wasting their money because, like, give me a shot and like something easy.
And different strokes, dude.
Yeah,
seven billion people on the planet, just different
Everyone's
strokes.
Got their own way of doing it. Yeah, man, I don't know. Just from my experience, what I've seen, I think the trend is still there, and I think the IPAs are still considered like the most dominant ones right now because of the high ABV, and they're palatable. Most people can drink an IPA as opposed to a really heavy, rich imperial stout or
right. I was gonna say,
what I mean? Like those are great.
A lot of stouts can have just as much, if not more, ABV.
Absolutely.
Belgian style too, but they're harder to drink.
Absolutely. And then the thing is, man, like perception's everything. So like I've dealt with several accounts where they'll have an amazing imperial stout on, and it'll be at a reasonable price, like $8 for like a 12-ounce pour. But the common guy, the guy that's going in there on his day off just to get a little buzz and watch the game, he's like, wait a minute, man, I'm paying $8 for a 12-ounce glass, or I can pay $8 for a 16-ounce glass of an IPA that maybe 4 or 5 points lower in ABV, but perception. I get more fluid. I get to drink it longer. I get to sit there and knock back in a pint of beer as opposed to a 12-ounce, 8-ounce pour of an imperial stout. Yeah, it's like a glass of wine. It'll get you fucked up faster, but they don't see that. And then a lot of guys are quick drinkers. Like myself, I don't drink, I gulp. My girlfriend says that to me all the time. Like, I have this thing where I just drink fast, so...
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, man. I mean, right?
I consume all of my liquids quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, my Paloma was crushed a couple minutes ago, and you guys are still
perfect.
Have yours almost full.
Well, we got a full podcast to get through.
Yeah,
so
man.
It's like,
I mean, and that's why I went with 1.5 ounces of tequila in mine, is because
you might have a second one.
I drink all my liquids at one rate, and that is fast.
Dude, I'm the same way, man. I'm the same way. So most guys are like that as well. So guys going into a bar, they want a 20-ounce pour of an IPA as opposed to a 16-ounce pour of an imperial stout. So the taste is one thing, but it's more so perception.
I mean, I know that you and I know this. For many years when we were at the Famous, like, our most potent beer was the Allagash Curio.
Oh, dude, that's a great fucking beer,
and that's a genre. That's a genre that I want to talk about a little bit, and this is a nice segue into it, because that turned into one of my favorite craft beers. It turned into my favorite genre of craft beer.
Yeah.
But it's a Belgian style quadruple. It's a quad.
Yeah.
It's a barrel aged Belgian quad.
What's the ABV on that? Like 13, right?
No, it's more like 12.
It varies.
It's
like I've seen it at like 11.8 around there. It varies because they put out a new batch every year.
Yeah.
So like while aging in the barrel, the ABV will fluctuate as it's aging.
Do you happen to know why?
Angel share.
It's just the process of aging. Huh?
It's just the process of aging. That's how aging in an oak barrel works. Sometimes, it pulls out different amounts of, it's probably bourbon that was aging in there prior. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes different amounts evaporate off. So part angel share, part like how much bourbon did that oak barrel soak up because there's a lot of variance there. Yeah,
it's amazing how much more complicated aging becomes when you're. Well, guys, I know you've made beer yourself, and but when you're aging it
it's a different game.
It completely
changes
changes
it's a different game for sure.
But talking about the Curio, people used to come in. They used to like look at our strongest beer, and they would order it. And it would be like it's still $1 or $2 more because I mean Curio is not cheap. If you're buying you're buying a 750 of it at a store, you're gonna spend at least $20.
Yeah, I think a 6-still keg, which would be 42 pints, is around $130.
It's not a cheap beer,
so
but
that's not cheap, dude.
But we were selling it,
and you're not selling that in pints. So
no, that was
that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah,
it was what it was like 12 ounce, maybe 10 ounce.
Like that,
but I remember that we were selling it in those tulip glasses for $7, like at Famous.
What's the ounces in that tulip glass?
8, 10?
No, it was a little. It was either 10 or 12.
That's
either 10 or 12.
It wasn't 12.
Oh, okay.
So it would be 10, I would think. But people would get it, and guys would be ordering it for much the same reason what we're talking about, right? Yeah. They're looking at the price point, and looking at the ABV and they're not looking at
the true alcoholics base that down at the fucking quarter. They're like, okay, I'm getting this much percentage of booze.
But you got a little bit
quarter.
But
I'm in, dude.
But now
pull out their phone.
But now beer places, because I'm sure this same trend was happening everywhere. Yeah. Beer places are specifying what glass on their menu, which is what every beer place should be doing.
That's why a lot of corporate restaurants won't actually bring in those higher ABV beers because of that perception thing. They don't want to because they're not allowed to have Joe Schmo's brewery on the side of a glass because corporate says we need a clear glass and we only have 16 and 22 ounce glasses. So we can't bring in these higher beers because we don't have any glassware to put it in. And they're not willing to bring in new glassware. So it's like a weird little thing, even though they want to bring it in. So it's weird, dude. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I think is funny about that is that perception can really bite some dudes in the ass because they'd come in, they'd see the little dinky glass, they'd give us a dirty look about it, they'd slam it, they'd order another one. Chris and I would stop them at around 3. And we'd be like, we'd serve them their third one, and then we'd just say to them, listen, man, if you pound this one like you pounded the last 2, I'm not serving you anymore. And they'd be like, how come? I'm fine. They're like, yeah, you're fine now.
Yeah, you're not in about 30 minutes.
You're not going to be fine in about 30 minutes because you don't seem to give this beer any credit. But the best parts of those stories is because for a lot of people, a lot of guys at least we were serving, this was their first exposure to something like Allagash Curio. And they're thinking, there's no way that something that tastes this sweet, this rich, doesn't taste like booze, could possibly fuck me up the way that it's gonna.
Yeah.
And then they'd walk out of the bar feeling all nice and good.
Absolutely.
And they'd be going like, oh, that was awesome, man. I'm coming back again tomorrow. And they'd leave us a nice tip on their last one after they finally were able to feel the effects and be able to like know that what we were telling them wasn't no bullshit. It's like you can't chug beer like that and just expect to like, because that's the other thing too is like the way that guys have been drinking beer over the years has kind of changed a little bit. And even like Budweiser put out a really condescending ad a couple years ago, didn't they? Like the one with
we make beer the hard way.
Yeah.
That one, it was like a Super Bowl ad. I think it was like maybe 2 Super Bowls, maybe
they
Super Bowls ago.
They prominently displayed the handlebar mustache in there in like kind of a condescending way.
Oh no, I don't.
You don't remember this?
Oh
ad?
Yeah.
Oh no, this ad bit them in the ass like that same year.
In what way though? Like what were they?
They were basically saying we make beer the hard way, and basically saying that they are more like that.
Blue collar.
That like craft beer is pretentious. And we're not serving you a like peach wood aged smoked.
That's exactly what this sounded like.
Beer
in the ad, the audio for the ad during the Super Bowl. No, I remember this because I remember the fallout that came from it afterward.
Ninkasi put out a joke commercial.
Was the one.
We make beer the easy way, and it was just like all about their process. That's just like making fun of Budweiser's ad.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Like
at all,
you can't. Budweiser made a serious mistake because they basically tried to like
divide beer customers,
and they like that is the wrong move when you see the market moving clearly in one direction.
That's
right. You don't alienate that entire customer
base. You don't draw a line in the sand when you're clearly losing the fight.
But there is a reason why I think Budweiser felt that by doing this it was a good move, because I want to say that like the rise of craft beer has changed in many ways the ways that mostly men, but that's not even accurate either. But the way that I want to say Americans perceive beer, and I'm saying Americans because full-bodied ales and like full-bodied lagers and like high ABV beers. Those are things that were popular in Europe way before craft beer became a thing in the United States.
That's fair.
Although I would say that the U.S. absolutely popularized the IPA, right?
Yeah.
If you have, I think...
But it's not an American invention, it's a British invention.
Right. Samuel Smith, I believe, still makes an English-style IPA, and I've had it, and it's basically like IPA light, right? Like
it doesn't taste like a barrel full of Pacific Northwest hops.
Right. It's like pale ale status,
Gotcha.
where you're like, yeah, there's hops here, but the bitterness is mild, and the ABV is still hovers around 6%, right? Like it's still 5 to 6%.
These days, you're drinking 6% lagers,
right? Like,
yeah, dude.
And it's still IPA. It's IPA light,
Yeah, I gotcha.
and I think the idea of the like in your face, hop forward, higher ABV, bitter IPA, like West Coast IPA, is its own thing now, and it is the dominant style of IPA.
But is it still the dominant style? Because I know a couple years ago that session IPAs became a thing.
It is,
and they got real popular too.
It is going back in sales as far as the West Coast style. That's why the hazy kind of came about, because it was a nice break from that.
That's a term I haven't heard before. What is a hazy IPA?
Hazy, it's just it's
Unfiltered?
flaked oats. It's unfiltered. They use suspended yeast, so the yeast that just doesn't fall to the ground, and it's mainly flaked oats. So you get a lot of oats in there. You got a lot of wheat oats in there as well, and it really is just.
Give me an example of a good one.
So if you want it, my personal favorite, I'd say McKellar makes a really good one.
Okay, that's a great brewery.
Yeah, they make a really solid one. Who else makes a really
to interrupt? We carry the Fremont Sky Kraken hazy.
Not had that one.
It's a hazy pale,
gotcha.
right?
Fremont, they're based out of Oregon, right?
Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, that's right.
Yeah,
Right.
they make some really good beers.
Yeah.
But
the Lush IPA is solid, dude.
Yeah, they're like every year they put out a barrel aged stout. I think it's an oatmeal, but maybe not.
Yeah.
But they put out a barrel aged stout that a buddy of mine that lives in Seattle. He basically, every time he comes down, he gets me the new barrel aged of that year.
It's a good buddy.
Yeah, right?
That's a real good buddy. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that but they make good beer, and they're like, first of all, I love that name, Sky Kraken.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah. The hazy pale ale.
It's one word away from cracking rum. So I'd be careful with that.
Why'd you have to ruin it, dude? Why'd you have to kill a moment, man?
Because that reaction right there is gold.
But that's a really solid one. Okay. I tend to like unfiltered beer in general.
Yeah, it's fair.
Right? I think it's more full flavored. Mm-hmm. You get more like texture too in the mouthfeel. But
I like unfiltered beer the same reason why I like French press coffee. It's just you get the full flavor of the coffee. I mean, you guys are familiar with French press.
Yeah.
Like you get the full flavor. You actually get the oils from the bean that you can taste on your palate, and that end up like the residue on your palate. You can taste the oils on it, which is really nice. But unfiltered beer, man, like they're actually making hazy lagers now too.
Cool.
Fucking help me out here.
I didn't even know that was possible. That you could, unfiltered lager.
Yes, Mumford.
Oh yeah, Mumford makes good juice.
They make really good shit, dude. They have a hazy lager that blew my fucking socks off. It's like 4.8%, and it just tastes like carbonated orange juice. It's amazing. But it's super light though. Super light. It's not too sweet. It's really, really nice.
I don't know if I want my beers tasting like orange juice, but
most hazies kind of taste that way because of the hops that they're using.
Yeah,
so it adds a lot of tang to it. Is what you're saying.
A lot of tang. Certain breweries, like I just tried the worst. Okay, so there's spectrum wise. The furthest end of the spectrum being the best version of it, I think McKellar, not being biased here, Santa Monica Brew Works, they also have a double hazy called Head in the Clouds. So it's around 8.1%. It's a fucking solid. It just got bronze at this last a beer festival competition. The other end of that spectrum, the ones that I would stay away from as far as being your first hazy to try, Samuel Adams just came out with the hazy. It's just called New England Hazy IPA. And that tastes just like OJ. It's just sweet. You could taste the oranges. It's just not good. It's just like, dude, I'd rather
it lacks subtlety.
Oh, 100%. It's just there's nothing about it that really stands out outside of there's alcohol and it's carbonated and it's cheap.
Well, I mean,
really
what I was gonna bring
too bad.
Breaks my heart, dude.
When we get this topic going, I was thinking about the way that craft beer styles go very much in trends, and for a while there, the trends were like there was a new hot trend like about every 3 months.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like I know peanut butter stouts got really huge for a little.
That was big. That was big. A couple years
most
back.
recently,
Session
brewed
IPAs were real
IPAs.
big.
Yeah,
what
Brutes were kind of Brutes. It was they used champagne yeast.
Oh, it was like extra dry.
Yeah, it was
right?
extra dry.
Are sours still big? Because sours got really big for a while.
They are, dude.
And
it's just
and
it's not as big as it was, but they're still.
Yeah, but I'm still not really a sours guy. And
I love sour, dude. Personally,
man, me too.
You too. I love a kettle sour, dude.
Heart.
Kettle sour with some fruit. Little vanilla bean extract.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like every single one of these trends
spot.
produces something I love. Like that Petrus Red that we carried for a while was like
that was okay. I think that was like a PG-13 version of a sour beer.
But
personally,
but
you
for
want to
me,
get to rated R,
for
man.
me,
You got to go to Dionysus in Bakersfield. They make solid sours, man.
Phantom Brewery.
Phantom,
Still, they're
good
famous
call on
for
that.
their sour.
Good call on that. Phantom's really solid. Concrete Jungle and Ventura. Phenomenal sours, dude. Solid shit.
Little more mild, and I only bring it up because Roadhouse actually turned me on to it. I texted him.
Roadhouse?
Yeah, man. Shout out to Roadhouse. So I texted him because we were looking for a sour for my program, and I was like, "What cool sours have you tried?" And he responded to me in like less than 5 minutes, and he was like 10 Barrel Cucumber Crush. That is a kettle sour with cucumber.
That got really popular when we started serving it at Moosedown.
Yeah,
man, I like, dude, a hot day with I'm not normally this type of guy, but I would love to just sit on a porch on a hot day with like an ice chest full of those and just crush them back to back. Yeah, that is a good summer beer.
It's a fucking solid summer beer for sure, dude.
It is a really good one.
Yeah. But their sours are still out there, man. Like they're still going strong. I've noticed that the transition's going more towards the female side of like beer drinking sours because they relate to a wine in a lot of ways. Yeah. So women that love white wines, Sauvignon Blancs, Rieslings, like those really bitter ones, those tart ones, they tend to really gravitate towards sours. But I mean, guys are still drinking it too, like myself. Like I love a good sour. I can't spend my entire night on a sour. Because you get that acid reflux, you know what I mean? Kind of starts fucking my stomach a little bit. But it's a great beer, though, man. I do like sours, but Brutes were popular for a while. Hazies are like kind of like running the main show.
Yeah, here was another trend that I wasn't a fan of when it came around for a little while is the hoppy wheat ales.
Dude, those are kind of coming back.
They're coming back. Oh, yeah, man. I can't get into them. They feel like contradictory flavors in a way that I don't enjoy.
Three Weavers just came out with a new one.
Three Weavers is a great brewery.
It is, and they just came out with their hoppy wheat ale. I forget the name of it, but they just dropped it. They dropped that one and a rye IPA. Rye IPA blew my socks off.
Really nice.
The wheat.
So that's
IPA.
a trend I did love is when rye beer came out.
Dude, it was rye IPAs, man.
Rye pale ales too.
I never had a rye pale ale.
It's been a minute. How would you describe what rye does to a beer? Because I haven't had
personally,
one in a
I
while.
think it adds for me whenever I think of rye, I think of like pepper, spice, like that kind of thing. For me, the spice, whenever I'm drinking an IPA, specifically a rye IPA, whenever I'm drinking a rye IPA, the hops, the dryness always comes at the very end, right? At least for me. So for me, whenever I'm drinking a rye IPA, it's almost like you get a 3-layered beer. You get the sweetness from the malt, you get the subtle rye. A spiciness right in the middle, and then it finishes with the bitters. But if you make a really nice rye IPA, like Three Weavers did, the rye kind of, for me, the flavor of the sourdough bread, like that sweetness from the sourdough bread, and that pepper side from rye was kind of present throughout the entire beer, throughout the entire experience. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
No,
it was just like it was a nice break from the traditional IPA where it's just sweet hops, dryness, cool. It was just like, oh my god, like the sweetness reminds me of rye bread. Like that's kind of what I'm tasting right now. Like it's pretty great.
For me, it reminded me of rye whiskey.
Yeah, rye whiskey. Yeah,
so
but like
I was already biased. I was always gonna love rye IPAs because I'm a big rye whiskey drinker. Yeah,
that's just smart marketing for you, then.
Yeah.
So I just throw rye on there. Andrew's gonna love it. But again, like the experience of it, like the sweetness from the rye was there, but more so like it was just present throughout the entire beer. So if I had to describe it to anybody. Sweetness reminds me of the bread. It's kind of what you would get, just like a Belgian wit, for an example. Right. That reminds me of like banana nut bread. It's kind of what I taste because of banana, the
banana clove,
exactly,
banana clover,
exactly. So a rye beer, I would say, expect the sweetness as rye bread, at least whatever sweetness you can get from it, but more so the spice of the rye is present throughout the entire beer. Is how I would describe that. When you throw in the hops, it just makes it's just a nice party. everyone's getting along.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, for sure.
There is one last trend I wanted to talk to while we're still on the topic of beer. And that's the one that I've been seeing more and more of, like, outside of the bar scenes.
Yeah.
Like, in grocery stores, in liquor stores. And that is now, and there's a lot of reasons there's a lot of things that kind of this boils down to, but it's the rise of the craft lager. And, for my journey when I first started drinking beer, as we said, was the reds and the ambers, like, the beers that I was picking up at CVS for the same price. But nowadays, it's like, you go to a supermarket, you try and buy, like, craft beer, and you're gonna pay for it, like, at least, like, $10 for a 6-pack. And,
Yeah, dude, which is fucking absurd, man.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I couldn't do it. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty limited perspective on this, so feel free to disagree with me, Derek, but I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that major breweries, right, what we call, like, major domestic brand breweries, Anheuser-Busch, what is it, like, Coors, Miller, right? I don't know their actual, like, names of their companies, but they realized that craft beer won. Right, they realized,
or was definitely winning.
They realized what direction the market was going in, and they started buying up craft breweries. Mm-hmm. And I think they bought up the craft breweries and then raised the prices on them because they knew they could. You just make a huge investment, you want to see a return on your investment. Yeah. So that's my kind of educated guess on why that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. I think there are a number of reasons. That's definitely one of them. Another one that kind of happened was the market kind of got flooded. I mean, in California alone, there's over 700 breweries just in California. So it's kind of giving you an idea, a perspective of per capita. I believe San Diego definitely runs supreme. There's more breweries per capita or per square mile than anywhere else in California. But in the entire state of California, you have all those different breweries. Every single one of them is trying to make it big, right? I mean, that's at least a dream. Yeah. And then nowadays, what I'm noticing is, not to name any names or anything like that, but there are breweries that I've noticed just based off of talking to the owner and the brewers and whatnot, that their intention isn't necessarily to make a really good beer and then be happy with that and just let that be their primary source of income. As far as, you like my product, you buy it, I give you the product, you give me cash.
I know where you're going with this.
Exactly. Their end goal is what Golden Road did. That is to be bought out, to make a $10 million investment into a $4 billion fucking income, like a payout.
Yeah,
so, like,
basically.
A lot of brewers are doing that, and so to stay competitive, the prices are going up. There's more competition.
They're also marketing now, which is why I said the lager.
But then you throw in people like Heineken, Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors. They're like, oh, dude, we're just going to buy fucking Elysian. We're going to buy fucking Golden Road. We're going to buy, what was the other one that they recently bought?
Goose Island.
Goose Island. But there's another one they recently bought. Lagunitas did, but there's another brewery that just recently got bought out. I forget what it was. Either way. So they're buying all these guys out, and then you're right about that, man. Like, they buy them out. They buy them out because they need a craft beer under their umbrella, and they can pump money into that, and they can raise the prices, which in turn, makes us, not us as in me specifically, but other breweries that are into, like, if you go into a Vaughn's, a grocery store, for example, you'll see the same setup of breweries that you would at an Albertsons or a Ralph's or a Pavilions but you go to Whole Foods.
It's always the same guys.
Exactly, dude. It really is, because they're the only ones that have the money. And I don't know how it works in the upper echelon when it comes to those boardroom meetings, and you have Joe Schmo representing. I don't know how that goes, but from my experience, it seems as if they're very much like, hey, we're going to take a pay cut as me being the proprietor, the brewery that you're buying my beer, to serve it into 8 or 9 of your stores, being Vaughn's, Albertsons, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to sell it to you at a fucking cheap-ass rate where I'm barely making anything, as long as you sell it at a certain rate that makes a profit margin, easier for you to accept, which ends up being $10, $11 for a 6-pack. So it's not necessarily the brewery that's making those prices, it's what they're selling it for, and then the bigger chain restaurants, or grocery stores, that are the ones that are setting those prices so high, and then it just turns into a big clusterfuck, man, really. And at the end of the day, I think we're the ones that are kind of getting the shit end of the stick, because I would much rather go to a fucking bar and then have a fresh pint of whatever the fuck beer than to buy a 6-pack a $10 6-pack where I just go home, sit in my fucking apartment by myself and just drink those. Like me personally, man, I'm just like, dude, I would rather not even contribute to that problem. You know what I mean? Or you can just make your own beer, which is what I've been
Well, you
doing.
got to understand, Derek. When I first started, like that was how I got started in craft beer.
What, like going to bars and
just buying what I found on the shelves.
Yeah, man.
And for a while, what we used to do, what we were doing is that we would go to Bevmo.
Dude, Bevmo's where it's at, dude.
And we would buy a new thing each time. We would go, we'd look for something different, and we'd just try it.
That's where it's at, dude. There's a really awesome spot out in Sherman Oaks called... my God, Derek, how can you forget this fucking name? It's like the #1 craft beer store in all of Sherman Oaks. Give me a second. Please continue the conversation while I look this up. But there's another spot up north over in Westlake called Bottle and Pint. And that place is awesome. If you're ever in Westlake, please feel free to stop in. They have a tap room. So they have all these different fun beers. Nothing domestic. You'll never see a Bud Light, Modelo, etc. And then they also have, their permit allows them to sell bottles, so you can buy it in the store, take it out,
try it,
or you can try it.
There's a place
fucking awesome.
There's a place like that over in
so
Eagle
cool,
Rock,
dude.
too.
I love it.
I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a place over on Colorado Boulevard that does the same thing.
Really?
They've also got board games in there.
Really? Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, that's awesson.
That's another trend we'll touch back on another episode.
Yeah, like how beer and board games tend to go
or
together.
Or just bars and board games at the board game cafe. That's another one. But
like, I'm just saying, like, originally, like, how I first got into it, and I think how a lot of people have gotten exposed to craft beer over the years has been through those same types of grocery stores. And now it's like one of those things where it's like, I feel like that golden age is kind of coming to an end, and now it's like it's becoming more and more of a niche market again, where it exploded into the mainstream, and then kind of became a victim of its own success. Now most of the beers that are being sold that are successful at these grocery stores are the ones that have the widest range of appeal.
It's true, man. It's all about eye placement. Yeah. So like when you walk in, usually most people will look at where their head level's at.
Yep.
So like that's something that me, again, with this new job, this new position, I'm now learning about that. And it really is about eye placement. So if you have beer that's stacked on the ground, chances are you're not looking down at your feet as you're walking. It's all about, and pay attention, man. When you go to a grocery store, usually you'll see Budweiser, Heineken, Boston Lager, all fucking mid-eye level. Exactly, man. It's so crazy. Yeah. It's so fucking crazy. But going back to that place, if you're ever in Sherman Oaks, check out Valley Beverage. Beverage, man. Their slowest, the best way I can put it, their slowest moving beer is Bud Light, Coors Light, and Modelo. Everything else, you can find anything in there. As far as beer goes or wine, you can find anything in there. And their slowest movers are those mainstream beers. So it's all craft beer. It's amazing.
So just finalizing this topic, where do you see craft beer going next? I mean, because we just talked about how, like, you know, now the corporate influence is in there, the rise of the lagers are everywhere. And don't get me wrong, like, I think there's something good to be said about craft lagers because you're basically like raising the expectations of what people expect from just a regular old blonde lager.
I hear you.
And you're turning that, and you're just raising the overall quality of beer just in general. And so now it's like you're making a conscious choice now to go and drink those domestics. It's not just about you know, I don't want a full bodied IPA, I just want something easy. But now it's like, well, you want something easy, man. You've got like 25 different options in your home city by itself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But where are we going next?
Personally, man, I think if you would have asked me this question a couple years ago, I would have said, "Oh, it's just going to get better." But now I truly think the other shoe is about to hit. The other foot is about to hit. So, like, I think you're gonna start noticing a lot more craft beer breweries shutting down.
Yeah.
I think that just because I think going back to my original point, the market is a little saturated. Overly saturated, I'm sorry. And Bud Light, all those big brand... I don't want to keep giving them fucking... I don't want to keep saying their names. The big brands, they're going to be around forever. They're just... I'm sorry.
They're too
yeah, at this point, dude, generation-wise, it's just too cheap, too easy, too accessible. There's just... I mean, I'm sure there's just... The name recognition alone is going to be here for generations.
They spend more on marketing than the entire craft beer scene put together.
Overseas alone, too, man. Like, these fuckers are killing it over. It's not just the U.S. market. It's like overseas they're killing it.
That was something... my dad has this story that I still can't believe, where he was on a cruise and they were in Italy, and they met this British couple that on this cruise liner together, and they were just drinking Budweiser. They were loving it. And my dad's like, Hey, aren't you guys from England? Don't you guys have like all these other different options that you guys could be having? They're just like, there's something we just like about it.
Yeah, dude, I get it. It's simple.
I mean, how popular is Johnny Walker Scotch here? You know what I mean? And overseas, but in Scotland, that's their Budweiser.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I didn't know that at all. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, might be an educated guess.
I wouldn't be surprised, man.
But
Foster's is like that in Australia.
Nobody drinks Foster's in Australia.
I was going to bring Foster's up, too.
Nobody drinks Foster's up there.
Makes me wonder sometimes, because I know that you and I are both Spaten fans. It makes me wonder how the Germans actually feel about Spaten, because I think it's a great beer.
You know, Germany, I think, is different, because they have such strict beer laws that, like, they don't have the proliferation of craft beer. They legally can't. That's
interesting. I didn't know that.
German beer laws.
The German purity law,
I didn't know that.
And I think not quite to as strict an extent. Belgium has the same thing. But in Germany,
the difference is the yeast. The difference is the yeast, I believe.
Yeah, they have more like lax. They can do lambics and things like that. Yeah. But in Germany, like it's pretty strict. There's not a whole lot of variance in the styles of beer that you can make. And because of that, like, the same brands have been around for, like, hundreds of years. I don't think
the German purity law. The German purity law is old. It's hundreds of years old, and if I recall correctly, it was more of a health issue than it was anything else when they first came out with it.
Right.
Because people were putting all kinds of like weird, gross shit
adjuncts
in
and
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and it was really created as a way to standardize the quality of the beer.
I gotcha.
But in this day and age, it's become more of a stifling effect.
Yeah,
it's had more of a stifling effect on innovation.
I mean, that is one of the reasons why you have people like Stone, like, opening up a gigantic brewery in Berlin.
They closed it.
They closed it already?
Yep.
Did they really?
Yep, it's closed.
It didn't last that long?
Nope.
There was a lot of speculation about that.
They were very ambitious.
I was one of the more optimistic people, where I thought, like, you know what, because of this German purity law, like, I wonder if, like, this could actually work. But then I guess it's too ingrained over there.
I wonder what it is, man. Were they trying to make beer over there as well?
Yeah, they opened a huge brewery facility over there. And I think they just were, like, overly ambitious. And they just couldn't convert enough of the population. Stone is nothing
if not ambitious.
Right, like, they couldn't convert enough of the population. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've heard it from people in the beer industry, like beer reps, that it's closed.
Wow, dude. I mean, I'm not surprised, dude. But yeah, you're right. Stone is nothing but ambitious. I mean, one of their top-selling beers is called Arrogant Bastard.
Bingo.
So, yeah, dude, I'm not surprised to hear that. I didn't even know they closed down, though. I mean,
yeah.
Damn, that's fucking crazy.
That was fast, too.
All right.
But, Derek, I agree with you completely. I think there's kind of been a glut of craft breweries, and for a while, I'm not going to name any names. For a while, I worked at a brewery in the Arts District.
Yeah, I got you.
And that brewery is actually, I found out recently, is for sale. And
are they still producing product at least?
Yeah, they're still producing product, but it's just that, like, they put it up for sale. Shit. And what I've heard, because I still keep in touch with employees in there, the thing is that while I was working there, at least, for a year and a half, like, we made good beer. Yeah, I was extremely proud of the beer that we were putting out, even in the craft scene. I thought that the type of beers that we were putting out were, like, really high quality, pretty unique, like, they weren't crazy out there. There were no, like, whatever, quadruple, like, Belgian barrel-aged stout, like, any of that. But there was nothing super out there, but we were putting out, like, really good products that were a little different in each category. And the people, we didn't have, like, there was no marketing budget, and we didn't have a wide distribution, but the people that tried it pretty much always liked our beer.
Yeah, solid beer.
But you guys always had, like, some of the same people in there whenever I went in there too. Like,
yeah, we had a lot of return customers.
Brewery too.
But it's in the Arts District though. Yeah. So, like, for me, like, I don't go out to the Arts District very much at all. But to be able to have, like, just the front of the brew house, because, like, if you go in there, it's still mostly like a factory. Like,
absolutely.
You see the gigantic machinery and everything. Now it's all real ornate, like, machinery. Yeah. It all shines and all gleams.
Yeah.
But I mean, that front room is just a front room.
Yeah.
But yet you still had people sitting at that bar.
Yeah.
At the trivia, or at the what was the other thing that you guys did there?
What we did trivia. They had like foosball tournaments and things like that. Cool. We had a lot of events, but from what I've heard, right, and the thing is that I believe that a lot of the staff in all, like, from management, etc., the reps, like, really good, committed people, but the owner was done playing with his toy, right? The owner treated it like his own personal clubhouse. Like, he did some things, like, without going into specifics, he treated it like his own personal clubhouse.
He's just Mr. Moneybags, man. He's a Scrooge McDuck.
He had his money. He made his money in a different field. This was a game to him, and he was bored of it, and so he's selling it off.
Well, I want to be a little.
And I think that's the case for a lot of them. A lot of breweries are like, let's cash in on the craft brewery movement, and I think that now there's been such a glut of that you're going to see some more of those. Yeah. Like, the market can't bear that much.
Oh, no, for
sustainably.
Sure. And you can see it when you walk in. Like, I've gone into breweries that are, like, in a fucking industrial area where you just... I mean, unless you were looking for it, you would drive right past it. Like, that kind of a brewery. And it's just like, you talk to the head brewer, he's there from sunrise to sunset. He's just pumping out great beer. Prices are moderate. You can get the feel where you're like, oh, you're in this because you actually love the game of making good beer. You know what I mean? And then you go to other breweries, not saying any names, but it's a complete opposite. Like I'm going to say Golden Road because they already sold out, so it's okay. You go to Golden Road and it's like fucking Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but beer. Like, you get an outdoor patio, it's like a restaurant. It's
we can say what we want about it, but they do have a nice brew pub there, and their food's actually good too.
That's that Budweiser money.
Yeah, it's flashy, right? There's some, again, well, I'm not going to name any names, but there's definitely some breweries in LA that have flash.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They've got a line out on a Friday, Saturday night. They've got a line out the door. But I've gone in there several times, and it's a coin toss of whether this beer is going to be good or not.
Dude, right? I know exactly what you're talking about.
That sounds exactly great. What you're talking about. That sounds like a good beer. From all the description, that sounds like a good beer, and it is a coin toss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's so funny you say that. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, it's a crazy world that we live in right now. Because, like, again, 15, 20 years ago, to think that these many breweries were opening up would have just been insane. To even think about it would have been insane. But now it's happening, and it's happened, and hopefully it doesn't continue. But the ones that do shut down, I think those are the ones that, unfortunately for me, I believe the ones that do shut down are going to be the ones that started the brewery for the right reasons. They just didn't have the money to back it up. So that's kind of what I'm afraid of. Like, the breweries that are actually making good beer,
but I don't want to
just can't afford it.
I don't want to believe that, though.
I don't either, man. Yeah. But, like, just based off of what I've been seeing and these guys that, Mr. Moneybags, like Scrooge McDuck, goes in there, is like, dude, I have endless bank accounts and I have funding and I have this, I have that. Let's just pump out as much beer as we can. This recently happened with, they bought out, I won't say the name of the brewery, I'll tell you off air. They bought out the head brewer from Stone. They paid him an advance fee of $1.5 million just to leave Stone.
Jesus.
Like, just fucking quit your job, come over here and make beer for us. That's exactly what they did. So, like, these guys, but those guys are gonna fucking make a product that's gonna stick around for a while because they have the money to back it. But once again, you have Joe Schmo's brewery up the street that's making fucking amazing barrel-aged beers and IPAs and Brutes and Groups and all these other fucking different awesome beers. Like Solark, for an example. I love Solark. They're amazing. They make awesome shit. But realistically, are they going to be around the next 20 years? I hope so. But probably not.
It's on you, the consumers.
Yes, motherfuckers.
It's on you. You choose with every dollar you spend.
Thank you, Raba.
What sticks around and what doesn't.
Dude, I fucking love it.
Honestly, and I think this applies to more than just beer. It applies to anything you buy. Look past the marketing.
Yeah.
Right? Look past the marketing. And, just like, you vote, every dollar is a vote. You will vote with your dollars.
Fucking love it,
whatever whatever you spend money on will stick around. And whatever you don't, won't.
Dude, Chris Raba, running for president 2020, dude. You got my vote, bro. You got my vote.
I'm hoping that some of the good ones stick around.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Real quick, I want to mention Lagunitas because they sold out. but they did it in the right way.
Yeah.
I forget which of the big three they sold out to.
Heineken. It was Heineken.
Heineken?
Yeah.
But part of their contract was that they maintain exclusive creative rights.
Yeah.
The same brewers decide what beer is made and how it's made. And I think they still retain, I think they sold half the company. So they still, or maybe they sold 49% of it off. Yeah. So they still retain creative control, right? That means you can take advantage of Heineken's distribution network and their marketing ability, but you still get to make the same good beer. I've had Lagunitas beer before and after they sold out, and I would argue that it is the same. It is the same level of quality. Now, I don't know for sure. Maybe the prices are different, right?
I haven't noticed that.
But
I mean, I don't buy Lagunitas anyway. I'm not a fan of their IPA.
That's fair.
I'm not. Nothing wrong with it. It's just it's subjectively, it's just not for me.
Yeah. Their Born Yesterday is pretty solid. That IPA series that they make is pretty fucking good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Dude, no, I fucking love that you mentioned Lagunitas. Like, based off of the sales rep world, that is almost looked at as like the premier job to work for, as Lagunitas, because apparently
but
they take care
to be
of
a little bit more
everyone.
optimistic, the fact that Lagunitas pulled that off, couldn't that also apply? Like, couldn't more people just take from that example?
Exactly, and I hope they do.
Yeah.
I hope they do, because it's really hard to resist.
It just, dude, really.
They're here's several $1 million, right, for your and you get to just
zeros.
Yeah, man. You just get to instantly retire. It's super hard to turn that down. So I don't blame anybody. No, you should keep working 60 hours a week. To make your modest living. Right. No, keep doing that.
Don't let your principles die.
Right. I can't realistically say that you shouldn't take the buyout. Just do it. I think there's a way to do it the right way.
That's fair.
Right? Where you're not betraying the brand that you've built, and you're not kind of betraying the consumers, right? The people that are following you and that have supported you again with their dollars, since from the time that you were a small brewery, and as you've grown.
I'm drawing a parallel right now that I know you're going to love. I know you're kind of running a little low on time, but I'm drawing a beautiful parallel to everything that you're talking about, and it goes in a completely different direction, and that's talking about music. Because this idea that because in a lot of ways brewing is an art.
No, absolutely.
There's some science.
The same way with with being a chef in the culinary side. That's an art form as well. It really is.
There's in a lot of ways there's an art, but whenever money and art, business and art, start mixing,
it's like water and oil, man.
They're not really meant to mix.
No, they're not.
But I mean, we've seen.
That's why you hire a manager or a lawyer to do all that shit.
But that's why I'm getting to music, because we've seen this same sort of thing play out big time. Back in the 80s, talking about 80s music, metal, glam metal, and the selling out of that.
The same as hair metal.
I mean, it gets a little murky. It gets a little. I don't really want to get into that topic with you, because that's a whole other podcast.
Oh, okay, for sure. Right.
What I would say to you is, there's a wonderful scene in the Jack Black movie of School of Rock.
Okay.
Where he's got this big web diagram. You know what I'm talking about? Where all the bubbles connect to different bubbles, and it's all just the different genres of rock, and you only see it for a brief second, but it's got to have at least 50 different subgenres on it.
Jesus Christ!
I when I zoomed in on it a little bit, I paused it at one point that I was looking at it, and the information mostly looked good, but some of the chalkboard was blurry just due to the angle. So I don't know how much they actually did their research. But,
Jack Black, being a musician, probably did a decent job just on his own.
No, but that's part of what I'm getting to, is that Jack Black is one of those examples of a guy who, he is a true artist.
Oh, yeah,
yes, he does use comedy as a big part of his repertoire as a musician, but that's just how he distinguishes himself from the thousands of other musicians that are out there making a lot of the same kind of music that he's making.
For sure. I mean, if you think about it, what's any different from Jack Black using comedy to inspire new music, as opposed to an artist that is very just self-involved and always talking about heartbreak and this and that, and
it connects with people.
It's the same thing. Yeah, if that's the gasoline that they use to motor, to power their vehicle into creating great music. I mean, whatever, dude. It is what it is. You know what I mean?
But my point is, and I'm just bringing this back a little bit to the conversation we were just having about beer, is that, I mean, this is more of a philosophical thing. I mean, I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I want to believe that true passion actually does shine through the business a little bit more. Like, you can see it. Even in that era, we're talking about the music era, like, it became really hard to, like, sift your way through all of the sellout, quote-unquote sellout stuff that was coming out at that time.
Yeah.
Every band was selling out. Every band was putting out different stuff here and there.
What's like the most known band that sold out?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer objectively. But you had things like...
Let's just take 80s.
Yeah, no, because...
80s rock.
All right, so, like, the one example that first comes to mind, and I can't even remember I can't remember the name of the band exactly, but it was the song Cherry Pie.
Oh, okay.
You know that song, right?
Yeah.
Well, oh, yeah. Who does Cherry Pie?
Was it Motley Crue, was it?
No, that wasn't Motley Crue. That wasn't Motley Crue. Motley Crue, like, they did sell out on one album, but there was a whole reason for that.
Gotcha.
That was because of the whole
Didn't
Vince
Kiss
Neil
sell
drama.
out? They made like a disco album or something like that?
Yes, no, Kiss was well known for that, but Kiss also kind of came back into the fold.
Okay.
Where, like, they sold out because they were being paid to do it, but it didn't work with their fans. And so their hardcore fans kind of dragged Kiss back out of the depths of hell.
Warrant, sorry.
Warrant. You're
Warrant.
right. I was waiting for you to do it.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you to do it.
Cherry Pie.
So
Good callback, sir.
Warrant was a run-of-the-mill 80s hair metal bands. They have some good songs.
Okay.
But Cherry Pie is by far their most recognizable song, and it's entirely due to the marketing, and it's entirely due to the time that it came out.
It's a good song.
I mean, it's kind of...
If you're in a bar and that song comes on, you're like...
bringing me to my point a little bit, but the thing is, the band hated making that song. That song became...
Did not know that.
That song came into existence because their manager said, we need a music video.
Gotcha.
We need a raunchy music video for MTV as a single for this album.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so the band, like, tried a couple things. The manager didn't like it. So they wrote Cherry Pie in, like, an afternoon. And all it is just one little sexual innuendo. And the whole song is just based around that little sexual innuendo. Mm-hmm. But then they threw it into the studio, and they're like, okay, since we're doing this already, let's go overboard. They were doing this with the intention of kind of shoving it in the manager's face. Is this actually what you want? And then the manager's like, yeah, that's what I wanted. And then they published it, and it became their best hit of all time.
Fuck.
And the band's just sitting there kind of fucking hitting themselves in the head going like, of course this was going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
And the guy, I remember there's like this VH1 interview where he was like, then it turned out where I was eating cherry pies at a pie contest. Like I was the cherry pie guy. And I hate that song with all of my being is what he was trying to say. But it was what the industry was doing.
Yeah.
And the reason why things like Cherry Pie, and then the other, like another big one at that time, was the rock ballad. The reason those things got big is because people put out songs that they actually generally had genuine passion for. Yeah. They became big money makers. People loved them. So now every fucking manager, every fucking business person, every record executive is like, give me one of those. That's selling right now. Yeah. I want one of those right now.
Yeah.
And it became less about making something that you generally cared about.
Gotcha.
It was more just, we got to catch this moving train while we can and make as much money off of it while we can.
Gotcha.
And then as soon as it's done, the artists are stuck. Yeah, because they're still like, not really a slave, but they have their own image.
Yeah,
they have their own. They're still wanting to make the art they want to make.
Genre of music.
Meanwhile, the business people are off throwing their assets onto the next big thing, onto the next moving train.
Absolutely, yeah.
And artists can't really do that.
Guys, I'm gonna have to just interrupt for a second. Duty calls for me. I've got to take off, head to work. As so often happens in the bar industry, something came up and I got to go into work early. Because that's what I do.
You other bartenders that are out there understand exactly what he's dealing with here. No, Chris, it was awesome having you.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you. It was awesome being here.
Yeah.
I'll leave you guys to keep talking a little bit.
For sure.
But yeah, hey, it was really good seeing you
great
again,
seeing you too, brother. Seriously,
thanks for
man.
coming on.
Let's get together
Andrew,
soon.
pleasure as always. I'll see you next week.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This is your guys' thing. Just want to say thank you so much for having me. I mean, the conversation's not over yet, but thank you, Raba. Appreciate you guys, man. It was good seeing you.
Yeah, likewise.
Sure. And so we were talking about rock music, and we were talking about like the industry of it, and kind of how bands have just, there's different periods of it. And we could even get into like some of the 90s stuff with like, grunge and how some of the grunge bands sold out, or how Green Day is like a classic example of sellouts. And if we were talking a little bit about metal before. You asked me.
That's probably the one genre when it comes to like 80s and 90s rock that I know most about, because that's all I really listened to was metal.
Well, metal was king in the 80s.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
and for very good reason. I mean, like, okay, I guess we can go here to go next.
Yeah, sure.
No, because the 80s were like, I was just watching this thing about it. The 80s were a time of excess.
Okay.
And like throughout the entire culture. And some of the musicians that have been interviewed have said that kind of metal like that type of metal, that type of party metal, glam metal. You were talking about the difference between like glam metal and regular metal, or other genres of metal, is that glam metal is more upbeat, optimistic party time. And whereas a lot of other metal kind of draws its roots more from kind of deeper emotions. They're not necessarily what I would call surface emotions. Because, I mean, you could get an image of a man based off of what he looks like when he's having fun. And, that's an image of a man that you can get from him.
That's fair. Okay.
But then it's a much different image of a man from, like, what he's feeling down deep in his soul. And so I would say that I don't want to say that nothing of the 80s glam metal captured kind of like what someone's feeling in their soul. It's kind of the reason why the rock ballad became a thing in the first place.
Okay.
But most of it dealt with very surface emotions. So, and there's some great music to be had from that. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not trying, and that's one of the things that I want to bring up too, is that like I'm not trying to say that like your inspiration is going to judge the quality of your music. Plenty of people have spoken about their deep emotions, but their music's not all that good.
Okay.
But the business side of things did dictate, after a while, what was being put out during that period, and it greatly diluted the overall message that was going on. And so, we were talking about beer earlier. I want to say that, that general passion will eventually find its way back through all the other mess, all the money, all the business.
I mean, yeah, dude, like, it's like the, like that pendulum swing, you know what I mean? Like, it's just gonna. It really is, man. Like, it'll come back for sure. I think, and again, I'm gonna go back to what I said originally. Like, I don't want those breweries, the ones that are very passionate, the ones that put beer first. I don't want them to close down. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, I hope they do. I just know what I'm seeing. I see where the market's going, and I understand business in some way, at least somewhat. I have somewhat of an idea about how it works. And then that's just my opinion. I just think eventually some of those are going to crash down. But I mean, that happened with the 80s and 90s, like you were saying. Like these bands that were being pumped out with just these one-hit wonders, essentially, is what they were, right? And then
after a while,
do we really know those bands now? Are they really around? I mean, they might.
We know the songs.
We know the songs, exactly. But we don't really know. The lead singer or the guitarist and what they're doing. Like, they're probably not doing much.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if we're still on the topic of rock music, like, at the end of the 80s, produced one of probably what I think was the best band to come out of that entire era.
Which was?
And that's Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Oh, okay, that's fair.
Now, you already know that I'm a huge Guns N' Roses fan.
Oh, yeah, for
you
sure.
already know that.
Yeah.
So, but they came out...
Are they back together, or are they still broken up?
I mean, they're still officially broken up. I mean,
they go on tour together now.
They did. Right? Their big... Oh, God, their tour was fucking incredible. They put out I read something in the LA Times about if the income, or if the income generation, the gross revenue of that tour was a country's GDP, it would be ranked pretty high up there in terms of country's
Jesus
GDP.
Christ.
That's how big that fucking tour was.
Jeez.
And so that tour became what it was because for the first time since, I want to say, like 1994, I want to say. Some GNR fans could fact check me on that later. But that was when Slash left the band. And so having Axl and Slash come back together was the real big thing because they had both been on the record saying that was never going to happen. And then you also had Duff McKagan come back. Steven Adler played a couple of shows with them. Okay. But the original five guys that made up their first album, Appetite for Destruction, my vote, greatest rock album of all time. You guys can debate me on that all you want.
Yeah.
That album came out in 1987.
Okay.
So 1987 is very late in the entire sphere that was the 80s glam metal movement.
Gotcha.
But my whole point, my whole even reason for bringing that up is because, like, you know, I don't know where we are in terms of, like, the golden age of craft beer. Because I would say that we're still in the golden age.
I'd say so.
But we're in towards the later age of it.
I think so. I mean, personally, I think so. We are. I mean, here's the thing: you really don't know what age you're in until
it's over.
Yeah, until it's over. Exactly.
It's over.
So we don't really know, but I think we are still in the golden age because there's still breweries popping up. Craft beer is still, in my opinion, the number one seller as far as what I see, especially when you go to certain accounts. You are now seeing certain corporate restaurants that are now
catered direct. Yeah.
Catered to exactly. Yeah. There are a lot of chain restaurants specifically.
Even more so than Yard House. I mean, Yard House when it first got going,
that was such a big thing. Yeah. We're like, holy shit, they have. Yeah, exactly. So they have 120.
You're talking about big restaurants that don't have different cup sizes. I know that Yard House serves Curio.
Oh, dude, I know they do for sure. So going back to my point is you have like these chain restaurants that are now the decision makers are now loosening the reins on certain stores and allowing their the general manager, for an example, to, hey, feel free to bring on a local brewery from that area. Maybe it'll bring in some more clientele because these local breweries have tasting rooms as well. So, you know, not only are they making money from, there's not a lot of money being made by them actually, like distributing out their beer from their tasting room, but their bread and butter is a tasting room. So, like, you know, you have these restaurants that are, especially the breweries that are allowing, like, food trucks to park in front of the brewery and just pump out food while they're pumping out beer. It's a fucking perfect little mix. So, you know, like, I'm seeing it. So, I still think we're in the golden age. I just think like I said earlier, I think that the other shoe's about to hit. I think we'll end up seeing certain ones. We're already seeing a couple of ones close down.
I'm agreeing with you. My only main difference is that I want to be more optimistic and say that the people that are going to feel the boot in their ass a little more than the others are going to be the ones that don't care as much.
I hope so. I really hope so. The ones that don't care as much, they just have deeper pockets, so it's a little bit...
Well, I mean...
A little bit harder.
That's why I'm saying...
Scrooge McDuck isn't going to cry over a...
But
this year, we lost $1.5 million as opposed to, a local brewery that's not by pumping out less than 10,000 barrels a year.
Let's say the Guns N' Roses of craft beer came out of nowhere. And, like, let's say... Or, you know what? Because GNR did come out of the LA rock scene, which was the scene at the time. Yeah. So what if, like, a new San Diego brewery just came up and knocked everyone on their asses?
Hey, dude,
you don't tell me that they could. You don't tell me they could go global.
Yeah. It can't. I mean, think about it, dude. Fucking Lagunitas did it. They came out. I mean, if you would have 15, 20 years ago when they were first, getting their shit together and getting started. If you would have told, the guys that are in charge of Anheuser-Busch, for an example, like, hey, this local brewery that just opened up is eventually going to rival you guys. Eventually, they're going to be so big that they're going to get bought out by Heineken. I bet you they would have laughed you out of that fucking board meeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would have. So, for me to say, no, I don't think that's going to happen, that's bullshit, of course. For all we know, there's a guy right now getting his recipe book together that in the next 10 years is going to be the next Lagunitas or the next Stone or the next Golden Road. He's just not going to sell out. Like, we don't know, dude. I really don't know.
The thing is,
I'm curious to find out.
I mean, I know I've said this a bunch because I've rewatched your episode of Long-Winded Spiel before.
Yeah.
And
which one?
The one that we did.
Oh, okay, for sure. Long-Winded Spiel, iTunes, Stitcher, Peepa. Give us.
I'm gonna get it. I want to talk
give
a
us
little
a
bit
like
about
and subscribe.
You know what? Hang on. Before I get
it's Long-Winded Spiel all together, no spaces.
And Spiel, in case you guys don't know, is spelled S-P-I-E-L.
That's the most common question I get. It's so funny you say that. I love you for that.
That's why I didn't put any of those fancy words in my podcast.
That's fucking so
Geeky
funny.
Bartender. Everyone can remember that.
Yeah, dude, I fucked up on that. I should have thought ahead. I was like,
once you get it down, though, it's easier to remember.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's like, well, look at Motley Crue. Motley Crue is like, Nicky intentionally misspelled the name of that band.
Oh, did he really?
Dude, have you not seen The Dirt on Netflix?
No, I know of it though. Yeah.
Before we get off the topic of 80s hair metal music,
which is actually a great a movie to reference, considering 80s hair metal.
I mean, it depends on how big of an 80s hair metal.
That was in the 80s, right?
No, it is.
Okay, for sure.
No, but if you want like just a glimpse into that world, and Motley Crue is probably they would be in this example, they would probably be the Stone Brewing.
Okay, they're based out of LA as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue came out of LA.
They both came out of LA, but the difference is that Motley kind of was one of the first big bands to get going in that scene, whereas Guns N' Roses is probably the last really big one.
Gotcha.
That came out of the
What
LA
other
music
big
scene.
band came out of LA?
Oh, dude, there's a ton of them. Poison.
Oh shit! Did not know that. Okay.
Poison, Def Leppard, I think was another big one. Bon Jovi, fact check me, I think came out of this scene.
Okay.
Quiet Riot,
What about
Ozzy.
Red Hot Chili Peppers? Did they come out of LA as well?
Yes, they did, but they're not the same genre of music.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, they're not the same genre of music,
Gotcha,
but they did. Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of are an interesting example because they got big mostly in the punk rock scene at the time, but they were doing something that was so outlandish even back then that like they caught their own wave of fans. So I mean, even at a time where punk and metal were everything in LA. Red Hot Chili Peppers caught the beginning of like something different, and then when hip hop hit the scene, Red Hot Chili Peppers was one of the first people to incorporate that music into their music, and so you had like these two kind of marriages of completely different genres of music that were both getting big in LA at the same time. They collected together in a single band, and then Chili Peppers got big on their own.
Gotcha.
I mean, and it depends. Like, I know Chili Peppers are kind of a divisive topic outside of. Did you realize this? Like, the Chili Peppers are a divisive topic outside of California.
Did not know that.
In California, everyone loves them.
Yeah, of
but
course.
outside of California, they're just like, all they do is do like some wiki whack and then talk about California. Like their music's all the same. That's
so funny.
That's what people outside California describe
That
them
is
like.
so fucking hilarious. I did not know that. No, I did not know. Huh, okay.
No, but
sure.
but a glimpse into the world that was the 80s sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Okay.
The Dirt on Netflix. I highly recommend
yes,
that.
to go back to
and,
that. Sorry.
And if you guys, like, I know like 80s rock music is not necessarily like what this podcast like, kind of advertised itself as, so we kind of got off tangent here a little bit. But if this sounds interesting at all to you, that is the movie that you got to see as a glimpse into that world. It's not 100% accurate, but it's close. And it's good enough. But, so we're talking about, like, I even brought it up in the first place and I brought up your podcast again in the first place because I remember being on that podcast and I remember saying things over and over that were related to economics.
Okay.
And craft beer, just like 80s hair metal, followed a market trend. A market trend it's just something that happens within a certain sphere or a market of the whole economy. So the whole economy is this one big fucking thing, and then there are markets within it. Beer, alcohol being one,
wine,
music being another.
Gotcha.
And then within each of these different markets, there are trends that take place. And these trends are often speculated. There are people that make shit tons of fucking money off of just looking at these different trends and trying to predict where they're going to go as they see them pop up. But then there's these different trends that pop up all over the place in all these different markets.
Just like organically.
Just organically.
Yeah,
it's just something. Each market is its own ecosystem functioning within the greater ecosystem that is the market, that is the whole economy.
Yeah.
So, and then the wonderful thing about that is that now that we're living in a global economy, different markets from different regions are now influencing the other markets of other different regions across the globe. I know music. This has been a huge thing in music that has happened over the years. I know it's been a thing in beer as well because you have all these nice ingredients that are coming in from all over the different place. But the whole point is that these trends, they come in, they can seem like everything for a while, and then they go away. And so nothing about market trends are permanent. Sometimes these market trends become like long-lasting things that happen for a long time. I wish I could give you a good example of that. I can't really off the top of my head. But then other times you've got these other things that hit the market that stay huge for a huge time and then die out. And so I want to ask you something that relates back to this podcast and kind of where it originally came from. This whole superhero thing that we see in movies all over the place.
Okay. All right. I see what you're getting at.
Do you think this is just a short-term market trend? Or do you think this is something that's here to stay?
Well...
Because even someone that's not as big into the whole thing as I am, you're still very well aware of this everywhere.
Dude, yeah. Let me correct you in the most respectful way. I am very much big into this thing.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Dude, that is such a good question. That's a loaded question. I want to say I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's only going to get bigger from here. They just wrapped up Endgame, right? And no spoilers, don't worry, everyone. But as of right now, it's about to surpass Avatar as far as like the highest grossing film of all time. I don't think that's a cap. I don't think that's the cap. I think it's only going to get bigger because they haven't even started Phase 4 yet. Because technically, Phase 4 ends with Spider-Man Homecoming, as opposed... Far Away From Home.
Yeah.
As opposed to the... So that's
right.
a common misconception. Everyone, including myself, up until recently, I thought Endgame was the final one for Phase 3, but actually Phase 3 ends with Spider-Man Far Away From Home. So I'm excited to see who they're going to introduce as the next main villain. Honestly, I think this is just the beginning. I think they're right in the middle of it. I don't even think they've hit their golden age, if that makes any sense. Kind of going back to that, I think we're going to see a bit. I think Endgame is what's going to really expose Avengers out there, or just Marvel in general. But I think once they incorporate X-Men, Fantastic Four, all these other characters that originally Fox owned, and all these other, and Sony and all these other motherfuckers.
I mean, that is the big
we're going to see.
No pun intended. That is the big X factor. It's how the MCU incorporates these previously
and here's the thing,
from them
I
characters.
don't think that they're going to incorporate those other characters anytime soon. I think we're going to see those guys in the next 5 to 10 years. I think we'll slowly see a transition of, let's say Phase 4, the second or third movie into Phase 4. I think we'll start noticing the dialogue change. Like, oh yeah, there's actually mutants. And then now they can use the word mutant and then to describe people being superhuman as opposed to a super serum, the Tesseract, or being from some Asgardian what you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I think we are just seeing the beginning. I don't think... when it does cap out, when that does start to die down, I think that will be years down the road.
So let me, because I'm not.
Was that making sense on that?
No, you are making sense. I don't agree with all.
Am I answering your question at least?
No, you're answering. Okay, right. You're giving me your opinion on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to give you a counterpoint because I don't agree with everything you just told me.
Fair.
So if this is the beginning, let me ask you, what was The Dark Knight?
I think that's a subgenre, man. I think, like you were saying, like. There's an umbrella of comic book heroes as far as like movies goes, and there's just subgenres. I don't think The Dark Knight. I mean, yes, that's technically a comic book.
It's
story.
Batman.
It's Batman.
Batman's one of the most recognizable superheroes of all time.
Absolutely agree with you. But they're also now making the Justice League version of that Batman. And that's like a subgenre from what they have.
Are they still really? Because that's kind of being hung up in production hell. Ben Affleck just left the project. He left the project. They got to recast it.
Did he leave the project because of creative differences, or was it because they just weren't giving him enough money?
You know what? I'm not sure.
Because I know he was supposed to direct and write the next one, and they
took
took the directing part away.
If I had to make an assumption, I would say that the catastrophic failure of Justice League probably drove him off of it.
Here's the thing, man. So
because again, this is a man. I think Ben Affleck is very well aware of the way the wind was blowing when he took on.
He's been in Hollywood for like 30 years.
So what I think happened was he saw what was going on in the MCU, and then DC comes along and offers him one of the biggest parts they could. Batman. And if the trajectory for the DC movies was going to follow the same trajectory that the MCU movies were doing, then of course he was going to take that on. He wants to make the money Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans is making.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And I gave Ben Affleck a lot of shit when he first got cast, but he actually turned out to be a pretty decent Bruce Wayne.
He was a good Batman, not necessarily Bruce Wayne.
I have the opposite opinion.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't like the way that they interpreted the Batman character, but I did like the way that because they did their own interpretation on both fronts. Yeah, like they wanted to separate themselves from the Chris Nolan Batman as much as they could. Like I did love the way
I didn't like that Batman. I liked Christian Bale.
Yeah,
Christian Bale.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of his name.
I was saying Chris Nolan, and then I was like getting the two of them mixed up. Yeah.
I did not like him as Bruce. I did not like him as Batman, but I loved him as Bruce Wayne. I thought he was a great Bruce Wayne. I
thought he played both roles excellently.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if I had to pick one, I would say he's better at Bruce Wayne. Not saying I fucking didn't think he did a good Batman. It wasn't my favorite Batman.
What is your favorite Batman?
Fucking Michael Keaton. That's my favorite Batman.
You're gonna get plenty of nerd points for that one.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny about that is that
he's my favorite Batman and Bruce Wayne.
You know what's really funny about that is a lot of people like to say that comic book fans or that nerds have gotten a lot more picky in recent years. That
I don't think so.
I mean, if you, it's just that it's more visible now on social media than it used to be. But when Michael Keaton first got cast,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, there was a massive fucking backlash.
I got you. See, I don't know that because like that movie came out in the 80s.
Yes.
So like, what was like the 91, 92 when that came out, or was it 80?
I want to say it was 89.
Really? Okay. See, I was 2 years old, so I don't.
Yeah.
I remember watching that movie and just being blown away, and then watching it again, in my teens and like my 20s.
See,
I recently watched it like within the last year.
I still like Batman Returns.
Dude, me too, man. Like I thought. Okay, so for me, my personal opinion, I'm not saying I'm right, but in my personal opinion, I thought Michael Keaton did a really good job because he just watching it as like an artistic side, like as an actor and this and that. I thought when he was Batman, the way he portrayed Batman was I am Batman. And when he portrayed Bruce Wayne, it almost looked like he didn't want to be Bruce Wayne. Like he was pretending to be. It was almost like that old Quentin Tarantino story about Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And Clark Kent pretends to be frail because that's how he views
Clark and
the world.
Bruce have a lot of that
yes,
same thing
dude,
in
for
common.
sure, man.
Yeah.
I love, like, for me, just watching that and then watching Michael Keaton portray that, I just thought that was brilliant. I just thought it was amazing. That's why he's my favorite Batman, because I thought he did great as Bruce Wayne, great as Batman, and he was able to merge those characters where they were actually different people as opposed to the same person.
Say what you want about Tim Burton and his art style, and definitely like
I actually liked it, man.
I
thought it was great.
I mean, I can go back. I can laugh at certain things, like the rocket launching penguins. I mean, come on. That was a little too Tim Burton for me.
Okay, that's fair.
Don't get me wrong. Danny DeVito killed it as Cobbled Oswald or Oswald Cobbled.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It was Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Oh my god, Michelle Pfeiffer is like Anne Hathaway. Eat your heart out.
Yeah,
like Michelle Pfeiffer, like that is.
She had some shoes to fill, and I don't think she did a good job.
I mean, I think they did a nice reinterpretation.
It was a realistic version of hey, if this bitch really, I'm sorry, bitch, if this character really existed, then that's what she would be doing, what she would be like. I get that,
but she wasn't nearly as like twisted and like psychologically thrilling as like Michelle Pfeiffer's version.
Oh, absolutely.
And then again, like these sorts of things, and we're talking a lot about market trends and like legacies and all these different things. We're able to look back now on some of the things that they did that were brilliant because we're comparing them to what has been done
now
after. And so a lot of these things, like the chemistry that Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton have on screen as Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, that was genuinely good chemistry. That scene where they're dancing together and all of a sudden they're both realizing that like this one's Catwoman and this one's Batman. And she just asks him this question. And I remember, I can describe the scene. She grips the back of his suit a little bit with her hand, kind of like a claw. Just now that she's being more like cat-like and defensive. And she's like, does this mean we have to start fighting? And she's just scared because this is Selena Kyle, now in conflict.
Because I'm picturing the scene.
Now
it's
in
a
conflict,
great fucking scene.
Now in conflict with the fact that she's Catwoman and Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne, for the first time. Now he doesn't he said that they were Batman, they were Bruce Wayne. Yeah. This is probably the first time that Bruce Wayne really didn't want to be Batman. Because he really just wanted to be Bruce Wayne right now and be completely oblivious to the fact that this woman that he's infatuated with.
What's that old saying? Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
So So we're like, you got yourself some major brownie points, not just with me, but I'm assuming most of the big Batman fans that are going to be discovering this podcast, because a lot of good could be said about what Michael Keaton did. I would say that most of the things that I have a problem with those original movies were mostly just Tim Burton being Tim Burton. But in a certain way, it's what happens when you don't follow the comic books very closely and you make your own artistic interpretation of them.
Like the first, outside of Batman, the first X-Men, like that was just...
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Spider-Man?
I was going to say Spider-Man, later on. Like, there's a lot of good to be said about, like, the way that Tobey Maguire and especially William Dafoe, interacted with in that first movie. But that movie...
first one was great, though, man. Like, that first one was pretty awesome.
Yeah, but it's like... one of my big issues with it is that, like, just, Tobey Maguire never looked young enough to be, Peter Parker.
That's fair.
Because that's me, because I grew up with the Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, it's one of those conflicts of interest that you're always going to have.
Yeah.
If you're a comic book faithful, you want to be close to the source material as you can, or if you want to let the filmmakers translate this and use some of their own artistic freedom. So then you get to Spider-Man 1 is meh at best for me. I know you guys can hate me on this all you want, but then you get to Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2 is a fucking masterpiece in my personal opinion.
No, Spider-Man
that held the bar up until The Dark Knight. Like in my personal
Spider-Man
opinion.
2, I will agree, is probably the best superhero movie that existed up until The Dark Knight.
It was the perfect story with, you have the hero that was not sure if he wanted to be the Spider-Man that everyone needed him to be. He was losing his powers. He was losing his mojo, I guess you could say. Then you had the love interest that was slowly finding out who this guy really was. Is he interested? Is he not interested? And you have fucking Doc Ock just wrecking shit. Like, it was a great story, dude.
Now,
it was a great story.
Doc Ock was an overall better villain.
Yeah.
But
then
but
Green Goblin in the first one?
Yes, however...
Is it the actor or the way they wrote it?
That's just where I'm drawing the distinction. I think Dr. Octopus is a more classic Spider-Man character in a lot of ways. I mean, he can kind of mimic Spider-Man's powers, like the wall walking, like the multiple arms, like all these different things. Like I just remember...
And his intellect.
Yeah, and his intellect too. His intellect too. Whereas Green Goblin, at least in my original interpretation of Spider-Man, came from those 90s cartoons.
Yeah, for sure.
And Green Goblin was never that much of it wasn't as much of a villain. He only became more of a villain later when Harry Oswald became Green Goblin. When Harry Oswald undertook the Green Goblin mantle, now all of a sudden there's this conflict between Peter Parker and Harry Oswald because of what happened with Norman Osborn.
Gotcha.
However, so all that being said, I thought William Dafoe was excellent in that first film. Not that he can't be. Like, William Dafoe can only be William Dafoe.
Yeah.
And either he fits or he doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Like, William Dafoe is still William Dafoe in The Boondock Saints.
I was just going to reference that. Oh my God, Andrew.
He's not
you
even...
just got brownie points on my end.
He's not even a character. It's just, this is William Dafoe.
In high heels.
In high heels in Boondock Saints. Dude. But he's perfect because I just think, like, William Dafoe is just that good of an actor.
He's a drag queen in that movie, dude. I love my favorite lines when he's hooking up with that guy. And he, like, gets out of bed and, like, I just solved the case. I know who the killers are. And then the guy he was just having sex with goes, are you going to call me or are you going to do something like that? And then he goes, don't be such a fag. And he, like, walks away. And I'm like, dude, let's just... I don't know. That was just one of my favorite lines. It was incredible. Yeah.
So this is bringing me back to my original... It's bringing me back to my original point. We had all these tremendous superhero movies that came out way before the MCU got started.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you want to go back to the 90s or the 80s, dude. You have before Batman.
You have the Christopher Reeve Superman movies in the 70s.
Movie, exactly. Yeah, that one. I was also referring to Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher. That was one of their first Kickstarter.
Dolph Lundgren was the Punisher at one point,
dude,
wasn't he?
Yeah.
They've been trying to do the Punisher right for 30 years.
They finally got it right on Netflix, and then they canceled it. What the fuck's that all about? That's just Disney, though. They just wanted to get their rights back.
That's business. When business meets art.
Yeah, dude, there we go, right? Does not mix. But yeah, do you have Dolph Lundgren playing the Punisher, which, for those of you who have not seen this movie, I think, as a story, it's amazing. Dolph Lundgren, I thought, did a great job playing Frank Castle, but it just killed me that they never showed his fucking costume, his iconic costume. There was never a scene where he had the white skull painted on his chest. He was just in leather.
Well, you did the same thing with the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie when he took his helmet off.
Yeah.
That pissed a lot of people off.
I forgot about that.
But yet you go and you ask someone like Dave Madrano, a shout out to one of our friends, you go and ask him about that first Judge Dredd movie, and he fucking loves that movie.
It's a good movie. I mean, it's not bad.
But
it's more of like a comedic version.
But it pissed off so many comic book fans because Judge Dredd never, like, was a rule. You can't remove Judge Dredd's helmet.
Yeah.
And so here's Sylvester Stallone, here's Sly.
Yeah.
Like, turning Judge Dredd into Sly.
There's John Rambo as Judge Dredd. Yeah, I got you, man. Yeah, I don't know. Just going back to the original question. First off, Judge Dredd. The first one I loved it. The second one also pretty good. But I don't know. I still like the first one more so than the remake. But just going back to the original question, do I think there's a cap on this Marvel shit? I don't think so. I think with this new X-Men coming over and all this other shit, I think we're just going to see a giant franchise of just the MCU just going to blow up. And that's just my personal opinion on it. DC, though, I think they did it right with Shazam. Don't know if you watched that one yet.
I'm off the DC train. I want them to restart the whole thing.
they did with Shazam, in my personal opinion. I thought they completely... I think they realized that they fucked up. Aquaman was okay. It wasn't bad. In my opinion, it wasn't bad.
I mean, the casting of Aquaman was great.
Oh, yeah. For Jason Momoa, right?
Yeah, Jason
Momoa. Going to Game of Thrones. He's fucking Drago or whatever the fuck. Draco?
Khal Drogo, yeah.
Khal Drogo, whatever the fuck. We're going to Game of Thrones here in a second. But yeah, Aquaman was decent. Wonder Woman, I thought was pretty fucking awesome. I was a big fan of that one. They really fucked up with Justice League. They really, really fucked up with that. So, and
Batman versus Superman was an even bigger sin.
That was just stupid. But yeah, so with Shazam, dude, I think DC realized what MCU's doing so well, and they took a little bit of inspiration. They added a little bit of the DC in there. They kept the story somewhat close to the comic book, from what I'm told, because I'm not the biggest fan of Shazam.
Yeah, I mean, me neither.
Yeah, I'm not like, I don't know him as well as I know Superman or Batman, etc. But I know of him. I know his origin story. So they kept it pretty fucking close to it. And I thought they knocked it out of the park, dude. And then from what I was told and what I've been reading and how I personally feel about it, I think Shazam is the next phase of DC. I think they're going to redo a lot of shit. I don't know if Henry Cavill's
out.
He's out, right?
Yeah, both he and Ben Affleck are out.
I think
so. Superman and Batman are gone. Gal Gadot's still in there because everyone loves her as Wonder Woman. And she loved being Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm telling you, man. I think in the next 5 years we're going to see a reinterpretation of Batman and Superman. They're probably not going to retell the story, but they're just going to continue it, kind of like what they did with Spider-Man. They're probably going to introduce either character in one of the other movies, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Shazam, a sequel to that one, and then we'll end up seeing a new interpretation, and I think it'll be just as good, if not better, than the MCU.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll
see. Check out Shazam, and when you do, shoot me a text. Let me know what you think.
Well, I mean,
I thought it was good.
Detective Pikachu's on my list first because...
No way, you're gonna watch that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, fuck, dude.
Absolutely. I'm
gonna wait for that to come out.
No, because there's no... Hey, so, you know what? There's no way that Detective Pikachu can be bad. You want to know why?
Why?
Because either it's actually going to be a decent Pokemon movie, or it's going to be such a shitstorm that I'm just going to enjoy watching it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going in there with the expectation it's either going to be decent or it's going to be a shitstorm. Something I can just make fun of. Either way, it's going to be a good time.
That's fair.
I'm probably going to have some shots before I go in, just to lubricate the situation.
Yeah, and Ryan Reynolds is Pikachu. That's going to be fun to watch.
I mean, yeah. I was even a little questioning about the Ryan Reynolds Pikachu at first, and then I saw the trailers, and I'm like, okay, I can see why this is going to work.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm keeping my expectations where they're supposed to be, but it's just like the prospect of this movie is too entertaining.
That's fair.
The prospect itself is entertaining, so how can the movie be any worse?
Yeah. I gotcha.
So we were talking about the MCU, because probably the MCU is probably the big elephant in the room when we're talking about nerd pop culture everywhere, but it's not the only one. No. Because Game of Thrones is another one. Yeah. And we were talking about this last week too, and Chris and I already voiced our opinions about it. And if you haven't heard that podcast, more or less, Chris and I are no longer like big Game of Thrones fans because we're both big fans of the book. And so
has the show caught up to the book?
No. So the show has done something that nothing has done before this. It went past where the books are.
Oh, shit.
Because George R. R. Martin is infamous for taking his sweet time. And I'm trying to say this as nicely as I can. But he has taken a very long time in making each of these books. So that in between book 4 and 5, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, that in between time period was 10 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's an
Jesus Christ.
It's an extreme example. So Dance with Dragons was the last one.
Was that the case for every single book? Or was
no,
it a smaller gap?
It wasn't the case for all of them, but it was the case for the last one.
Jesus Christ.
And
10 years?
10 years.
How much of that time was he actually writing?
No one knows. No one knows. But the whole point was when this show first came out, Dance with Dragons was new. And the show killed the first... It did a book in a season. So a season of Game of Thrones was about a book. And then it was about another book. And then it was about, a book and a half. Or about, half a book.
Yeah.
It got to season 5, and about the middle of season 5 is when things started happening in the show that haven't happened in the book yet. But every single time that the show's writers took creative freedom and started bringing in things that weren't part of the source material, every single time they did that, I hated it. Every single time. I thought it was cheesy, or I thought it was lame, or I just didn't think it was the same quality. Yeah. So I jumped off back in the middle of season 5.
Okay.
And now, I haven't watched a single episode of Game of Thrones since the middle of season 5. Ever since Ramsey Bolton came out and faced an Ironborn raid with no shirt on, and repelled an Ironborn raid with no shirt on and a sword. I was just like, okay, you know what? No more from me. So I have my own personal opinion about Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. But I cannot deny that Game of Thrones is probably one of the most talked about shows out there right now. Like it's talked about the way that Breaking Bad was back a couple of years ago.
I've actually referenced Breaking Bad as far as a storytelling side. I've been told that the Game of Thrones is considered to be one of the greatest storytelling shows on TV right now. And I'm like, is it like Breaking Bad? And the people are actually saying it's better than Breaking Bad. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I've only watched the first season of Game of Thrones. Even it didn't capture me though, man. Like, I wasn't in it. So everyone keeps saying wait until season 3. Give until season 3. My opinion is, if it hasn't captured my attention in the entire season 1, I doubt by season 3 I'm going to be completely invested.
Okay, so I'll answer that question in a second.
Okay.
But
going back to Breaking Bad.
Even if the writing was on par with Breaking Bad, and I don't know because I haven't seen past season 5, but while it was
Bad?
Game of Thrones. I haven't seen any of Breaking Bad. Well, I've seen some of the first season, and I've liked it. I'm waiting for...
What about The Sopranos? Did you watch The Sopranos?
No. I don't.
That's another show that everyone's comparing it to.
No, I know. But, it's just because they're gory and it's adult storytelling. Cool. That's really all it is. Cool. But I don't think that's a fair comparison just on its base, because Game of Thrones is being told with this rich source material that is better than the show. Like, even when the show is at its best, the books are still better. Because that's how good the books are.
Yeah, for sure.
Not everyone wants to read those books. It's a high fantasy book, and especially that first book is hard to read because there's so much exposition. So I was going to answer your question about, when should you get into Game of Thrones? Well, the thing is, the story and the world that they are trying to tell the story from is so rich and complicated that it requires a lot of exposition, a lot of build-up, a lot of plot development. It requires a lot of build-up in order for you to get those nice payoffs that come later.
Gotcha.
And most of the payoffs that you see in seasons 2 and 3 began in season 1. So by the end of season 1, you only get one major payoff. By the time you get to seasons 2 and 3, you're starting to catch a lot of those payoffs that began their development in the first season. So you don't care unless you were paying attention the whole way through.
No, I got you.
But by the time you start getting these second and third developments getting going in the middle of seasons 4 and 5, then things start to feel a little rushed for me. So that you're starting to get payoffs where it's wait, why are we paying this off now? We still have plenty more to explain about why this is a thing in the first place. That's just me criticizing the show's writing. Not the writing of the story, because the writing of the story is in the books, but just the show's writing.
Gotcha.
But I bring up Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones is probably the big show on television right now. What other show on television is being talked about to anywhere near the level that Game of Thrones is being talked about?
There's a huge gap.
There's a huge
from
gap,
number
right?
2 and number 1. Number 1 being Game of Thrones. There's a huge gap.
That's why that's probably why people want to compare it to Breaking Bad and The Sopranos, because the last time we saw something like this was Breaking Bad and The Sopranos, a drama, because it's fundamentally drama is they don't always catch on the same way that comedies do, but when they do, they grip people just a little bit harder. You know what I mean? A well-written adult drama will grip a whole audience to the point where they want to talk about it. Whereas a comedy, it can be well-written, it can capture a huge audience, but at the end of the day, you're just you're just going to be throwing out little references here and there. You're not going to be richly discussing the characters more often than not.
Yeah, I hear you.
I want to say.
I hear you.
But so you have the MCU being this big beacon of everything in the movie industry right now. Avengers probably overtook Avatar today.
Probably.
I don't know that for a fact. I haven't looked at the numbers, but they probably have, because that's the trajectory it's on right now. It made $1.2 billion in its opening week.
Which is fucking insane.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane,
dude. And Downey Jr. owns fucking he owns some sort of stock in the Avengers where anytime he gets a certain percentage of all ticket sales and all the other bullshit.
Does he? I didn't actually know he worked that into his contract.
That was back in the first Iron Man. because like he was the one that kicked it off. So that's back when MCU was kind of desperate and they needed something.
I mean, hey, you got to give a man props for knowing how to like work a contract.
Dude, he knew where the market was going. At least, maybe not Robert Downey. I don't want to give him all the credit, but his agent,
or he had faith in himself.
Yeah, that too, man.
You could say that too.
Yeah, that too.
But you see where I'm going with this. So you've got like two major things that are dominating pop culture right now. And one of them is comic book superheroes, and the other one is high fantasy novel writing. Is this just a market trend? Because we just came out of the Harry Potter phase. The Harry Potter phase wasn't even 10 years ago. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. And then you had Lord of the Rings before that.
Yeah. I think the biggest... Okay, I don't want to get off topic, so I'm just going to say this really quick without getting too far into detail with it. I think what Game of Thrones is doing and what the MCU is doing with these... there's 22 films in the MCU that led into Endgame.
Yeah.
And there's... I don't know how many books. Doesn't matter. But there's 7 seasons of Game of Thrones as of right now, right?
Mm-hmm. So we're on season 8.
Season 8. Okay, so there's 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. That's one thing that, in my opinion, the reason why there's so much success behind these shows is because the writers and the producers realized, I should say, that it's not necessarily us flipping turning $1 out of 15 cents right now, but it's playing the long game. Let's actually let these shows develop. Like you were saying, there's a lot of content in the books. So much content that the first book's hard to get through because there's just so much, there's probably like 3 or 4 chapters on just a fucking castle. And what, I'm just kind of, I don't know for sure. I'm just kind of like spitballing here. But
You're not that far off.
Okay, for sure. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. But my thing is like with the Lord of the Rings and fucking Harry Potter, I love that you brought those up because those books were trying to sum up the entire book in a 2.5-3 hour movie. There's not much you can do with that much time.
The later Harry Potter movies, up until the last book.
Yeah.
But books 5 and 6 really suffered from that.
Gotcha. No, for sure.
They trimmed so much out of those books.
I've not read a single Harry Potter book, but from my friends that did read them, they're like, dude, no, they missed so much shit that would have aided in the movie. For all we know, they filmed it. It just when it came down to the chopping block, studio was like, hey, the movie's too long. You got to cut this scene out. Business meets fucking art. Yeah. It's always going to clash. So the reason why I think Game of Thrones and the MCU is doing so well is because they found out, hey, we're going to talk to Mr. Moneybags and we're going to let him know, hey, do you want to see maximum profit? Do you want your movie to make $1.4 billion in the opening weekend? Great. Let us make 21 movies before it to really tell the story.
Well, each one of those movies is making money too.
Absolutely. But opening weekend, $1.4 billion. No movie before that was making that.
Yeah.
So, it's fucking killing it. So, with Game of Thrones, for an example, hey, instead of making a movie out of this bitch, why don't we just turn this into a season? And then fucking do it on HBO, which their check's always going to clear.
But even then, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And, this is better than what we were getting before.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're still dealing with the book problem that I just talked about with Game of Thrones. But then
I think that's always going to be a problem. If that's your actual question, I think that'll always be a problem. I think because I think no matter what,
there's only so many good comic book stories they can pull from, and
absolutely.
The reason why the MCU is as good as it is because it's pulling from this 30-year history of comics, and they're picking and choosing all the good shit.
Yeah, well, dude, and they haven't even. You still have Galactus. You now have Doctor Doom that's going to get added into the mix. That's going to be fucking dope, dude. Doctor Doom, are you kidding me? He's one of the greatest villains of all time.
I think he's ranked number 4.
Oh, is that
on IGN's 100? IGN was
Who's number 1?
That would be Magneto.
They're going to get Magneto as well, dude. Point being,
IGN. I'm going to be bashing on IGN plenty because a lot of their writing, especially their video game writing, is terrible.
Oh, for sure.
But they are the only ones that I know of that have done a comprehensive ranking of the 100 greatest comic book villains of all time, and it crosses
the Joker
over
in this list.
Number 2.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
Number 2.
I was the Joker. The Joker.
No, so the Joker. So actually, what I love about the way the final 5 break down is that 3 of the villains are DC, and 2 of them are Marvel, but Magneto takes that top spot.
Gotcha.
And so Magneto and Joker are an arguable 1 and 2.
That's tough, man.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Tough. Number 3 is Lex Luthor. Because Lex Luthor is also a fantastic villain, but the next highest Marvel villain is Doctor Doom. So the fact that Doctor Doom is that high to begin with on that list, and you know what? I'll say this a lot. A lot of IGN's writing pretty bad.
Yeah.
But that list is a good list.
Gotcha.
So it's a good one to go off of.
Gotcha. But anyways, back to the original point. I think there'll always be, when it comes to, getting source material from 30 plus years of writing or however many books that the guy that wrote Game of Thrones.
There should be 7, by the way.
7? Okay. So I don't think we're ever going to get that, like, this is perfect. The quality of the show matches the quality of the book that was written before it. Like, I don't think that's ever going to be a thing. I think there's always going to be an issue with it.
There might always be an issue with it, but what I'm asking is, do you think that this golden age of, of nerd culture in cinema and film, do you think that might be coming? I think that its lifeline is fundamentally finite because they're pulling from these source materials and they're pulling from them at a rate that can't be sustained for all that much longer.
No, I see what you're asking. Personally, I think we're just getting to the golden age. Going back to what I said earlier, I think we're just
even if we're including Spider-Man, even if we're including the Dark Knight trilogy, even if we are including the Michael Keaton Batmans and everything else like that, we're just entering the golden age.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, personally. I think
it's a more optimistic view, personally.
Probably. But again, I'm going back to my original point. I think the reason why I'm saying this is because I think DC is just now figuring out with Shazam, in my opinion. I thought that was a great.
So you're saying that if DC gets their act together,
I think so.
That we're looking at many more years of wonderful content.
I think so. I truly think so.
I think DC has their act together. I'm just waiting for Warner Brothers to get their act together.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who's to blame. But with Shazam, I thought they did a great job at actually telling a good story. And like I was saying before, not only telling a good story, but staying close to the comics. And then the actor, like the casting on it was great. It was fantastic, I thought. So I think once DC gets their act together and they figure shit out, awesome. I think Phase 4 of the MCU, I think in Phase 4 we're going to start seeing, Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Professor X, Magneto actually get added into these stories.
We're going to get a different telling of the Phoenix storyline even though there's already been 2 of them done on film.
Yeah, and then from what I was told, man, and what I read, the newest one that's coming out here in a few weeks is dog shit. From what I was reading,
I mean, it's been the whole movie was hampered by the whole acquisition team going on at the same time.
Oh, geez, I didn't know that.
And and then they were also trying to fit the whole timeline to fit with the original X-Men, and it was just a mess.
See, Days of Future Past I thought was awesome because it was their way to kind of clean the slate of all the bullshit that they made in X-Men 3 and all that other bullshit. But they just, I think it was too little too late. Because I think at that point, Disney and Fox were coming to a deal. And they were like, wait a minute, let's not give our best work in this because Marvel is just going to fucking butcher it anyways. Let's just go ahead and give them a product that's mediocre. Let's just tell them.
And let's try and make as much money as we can, considering that we've already spent half the budget.
Exactly, dude. That's my opinion because it's business. Let's not give them a great fucking product that they can go out and do it. They're going to change it anyways. Let's just give them something that's decent. We're going to make our money back. Make a Dark Phoenix. What's that new one that's coming out? There's another X-Men movie coming out with it's called. Oh my goodness, dude.
I don't know which one you're talking about. I haven't been paying attention to the X-Men.
Okay, so once we finish up, I'll show you the trailer for it. It actually looks pretty good. It's dark something, I forget, but it's a subgenre of the X-Men.
Right.
But anyways, so yeah, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I think we're in the golden age.
Well,
of this fantasy.
Even with all that mess that is the X-Men timeline with Fox, they still managed to put out Logan.
Yeah. Logan was amazing. Deadpool.
I think it was
awesome.
I think it was a little too close in its plot to Children of Men, but that's just me. I thought that
Children of Men.
It's a Clive Owen film, not nearly as popular.
Oh,
but
okay.
The plots they line up very similarly.
Gotcha.
That's my only criticism. Otherwise, it's excellent.
Yeah, I thought it was
great.
Patrick
Stewart. And Patrick Stewart's as good as he ever was.
Yeah, it's Patrick Stewart, man.
Of course he is.
What's your take on Deadpool?
I haven't seen Deadpool. Didn't much care for the character when I was reading him in the comics, and the thing is, I got to the torture scene, and I'm just kind of whatever. And then, I know everyone says it, no, if you want to see the meat of the movie, skip past the torture scene and just start when he gets his costume or when he starts getting his powers. I just haven't done it yet. It's on my to watch, but truth be told, I've always been, in terms of the characters, I've always been more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan. I think
you and I had this conversation in the bar.
Probably. Yeah. I do love the X-Men. And I do love Spider-Man. But just I felt like and this is why the whole DC debacle really bothers me, because it's like I think they have the better characters and the better stories to tell fundamentally, but they just haven't been doing it. And if you ever watch their animated features
I watch all of them.
Yeah, their animated features are excellent.
I watch all of them.
Far better than even like Rise of the Superman, which only came out this year. It was okay. It wasn't that good, but it was better than I
watched all their animated movies as well.
Yeah,
like, it's fucking awesome, dude. The newest one that came out, the Reign of Superman.
That's the one. The Reign of Superman.
Yeah,
that's the one I'm talking
great,
about.
dude. It was awesome. I watched the whole thing. It was pretty great.
I didn't think it was as good as some of the other ones, but it was still
the
still
one
good.
I didn't like was the Killing Joke, the one with Batman and Joker.
Yeah, that
one. The ending to that was just you made Batman laugh. Didn't really get it.
So
kind of fell short for me.
That's what's kind of funny about that one is that the second half of the movie is the one that actually follows the comic. Why that movie is widely derided is because of the first half. Because that first half came out of fucking left field.
Oh, I gotcha.
So that's why that
movie just kind of fell short. My favorite one's probably Flashpoint Paradox. That was awesome.
Yeah, Flashpoint Paradox is good.
That was fucking so good.
People criticize that one because it's like that. The Flashpoint Paradox was like 7 comic book novels, and so the movie trims a lot.
Gotcha.
But that's like the worst criticism. That's the worst criticism you can give for a comic book film.
It's pretty good.
That means that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good mark to go on.
Absolutely, dude.
But otherwise, the Young Justice has been an amazing cartoon. That's all I'm saying is that like I know the stories are there and I know the storytelling is capable. It's just that's why I'm saying
getting the right storyteller to turn that into the big screen.
That's why I'm saying I don't want to give DC too much hate. Most of my displeasure falls with Warner Brothers because they're the ones that have the license. They're the ones that have the license to make these live action films, and their animated department's fucking killing it.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I'm telling you, man, check out Shazam. Hopefully that'll at least...
Dude, that's a glowing recommendation. So that's the best I could ask for right now.
I mean, I think it's great. I thought it was awesome. I think it's on par on like Wonder Woman as far as storytelling and like the quality of it. That was pretty good. But yeah.
So, dude, Derek, this has been... I didn't think that we were going to get an extra hour just talking on freaking comic books and...
Oh, shit, it's already been an extra hour?
It's been an extra hour, yeah.
Damn, yeah.
So, this has been glorious, and I apologize, like, profusely for not giving you the credit that you deserve when it comes to actually talking about this sort of stuff.
All good, dude.
But no, this has been excellent content for my podcast. Hopefully one of these days I'll get to return the favor and be on yours again.
Yeah, you will. Absolutely.
And so I want to give you the quick opportunity to plug your podcast, and I want you to summarize a little bit of what it's about.
Yeah, man. Long-winded spiel. SPIEL spiel. It is it's really similar to this podcast in the sense that I know you kind of have a premise for this show.
Yeah.
My show is more so my podcast is more so based off of the guests that are on there. So we literally just have a conversation on whatever thing they're passionate about, whatever they want to talk about. I don't necessarily have I know the premise of this show is like we're gonna make a cocktail based off the guest, which I think is awesome, dude. This Paloma was fucking phenomenal. Thank you so much.
You heard it from him. I didn't even brag about it.
Paloma was amazing, and it's appropriate considering Cinco de Mayo was just a few days ago. But anyways, it's just it's a long form podcast, usually around an hour and a half to about 2. And it just whoever's on the show, we end up having a conversation on whatever interest that they're in. We end up breaking down a lot of sporting events as well. I'm a big UFC fan, so we break down UFC fights, Bellator fights, pretty much anything mixed martial arts. I'll end up having an episode dedicated on a upcoming fight card or a recap on a fight card. But yeah, I had your boy here, Andrew Sendes, and Chris Raba on one of my episodes, and we talked about bartending and the concept of bartending and mixology. And it was a lot of fun.
We got into a lot of drunk stories too, which is something we haven't really gotten a chance to do on this podcast much so far.
It was a great episode. I forget what episode number it was.
It was like 20 something. It was back in 2017.
Oh yeah. Dude,
actually, before I let you go, I did want to tell you something, and I want
to plug in one more thing afterwards. But go on.
But I wanted to let you know that I don't know if I told you this story over the phone, but one of my final motivations to really getting down to the work of making this podcast, because there's a big difference between having an idea for something and actually starting to do the work to make it a reality.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of my final motivations to being like, okay, you know what, I'm actually going to do this is because I was at a wedding.
Okay.
And my cousin's husband, I was talking to him for a quick second. I don't talk to him much, but he asked me a question. He's like, oh yeah, you do podcasts, right? And I'm like, I'm planning on making one, but I've only been on one before. He's like, yeah, you were on the Long-Winded Spiel, right? And I'm like, how do you know about that? He's like, dude, like, I love listening to fight podcasts. And so I heard you on there one time. That was a great episode. So...
No, for sure, man. Appreciate. What was his person's name?
His name is Edgar.
Edgar, thank you so much, Edgar, for listening to Long-Winded Spiel.
Yeah.
I have more content coming your way. So there's a lot more fight cards to break down, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I know. I love that you guys do the breakdowns. And the fights,
it's fun. I mean, it's like one-offs
Yeah.
that I do, but primarily the podcast is just based around my guests. But yeah, man, thank you, dude. I'm just happy that that Edgar was that final push in that direction, and I'm excited that that you're doing your thing, dude. I think this is a great artistic outlet for you, man.
All I'm saying too is that like if anyone wants to ask who to blame for why this guy is like saying all this shit on the internet all of a sudden, well, now you know who to blame. He was the one that originally got me exposed to all this.
Derek Lee Ramsey, man, I'm the one to blame. No, yeah, dude. But all joking aside, dude, I'm really happy you're doing this. I think artistically, me knowing you as a person, I've known you for a while now, man. It's been a while since we've been buddies. I think this is a great forum for you to just express yourself artistically. We both know you. And
once Chris gets out of his shell too, he's a wonderful. Dude,
that's a great co-host to have, man. But you're a talker, dude. Like you, you're a smart guy, so you have a lot of information to give out and to show people. And so I don't know exactly what you plan on doing with this. If you plan on eventually making multiple shows, seasons, like you were saying, and focusing on the cocktail side of it, or if you plan on venturing out and doing other shit as well.
One season at a time. I have a wonderful list of guests that have all said.
Which I'm excited about, man. I'm excited to listen to all those guys, dude, for sure. Because I know a few of them. So
next week should be fun. If it all works out, I should have Vice on here next week.
That's fucking awesome, dude, for sure.
So, but no, it's mostly just been, I want to make this first season as good as I can.
Yeah.
As quality as I can. And then from there, we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And we'll see what happens.
Dude, I'm really happy for you, dude. Sky's the limit, man. Fucking just keep plugging away. And the last plug before you let me go is I'm working on a project right now with a close friend of mine, Jonathan Andrade. Shout out to you, buddy. We are working on a YouTube channel called Brews with Masters. We already have an Instagram page.
I like it already.
Yeah. So the concept of the show is we're going to be on YouTube. It'll be between 12 to 15 minutes long, and we are literally going to highlight every local brewery in California. We are almost done wrapping up our first...
That's like Dives, Diners...
That's exactly what it is. So if Diners, Dive-Ins, and Drives met Parts Unknown, this will be our show. So we're literally highlighting all the local breweries. We are just about done wrapping up our very first episode. Thankfully, the guys from Hand Brewed out of Chatsworth, California, opened our doors for us.
I'm excited about this. This is actually something I genuinely would love to watch.
Yeah, dude.
Not even just saying it because you're my friend and you're plugging it.
No, for sure,
that actually
man.
sounds super fun.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, so we're pretty much done wrapping the first episode. We just got to do a last one-on-one interview with the head brewer. But thanks again, guys, with Hand Brew. They opened their doors to us, and they allowed us to come in, do a filming. We actually came on St. Patrick's Day, got some live footage with some people there. As far as like people just hanging out, we just recently 2 weeks ago we had the sit down interview with the master brewer, but the owner. It was a great day. Had a lot of fun. Now we just got to sit down with the head brewer, and then we're working on 818, McLeod's, a few other breweries here in the valley. So Brews with Masters. We have an Instagram page. We have a YouTube page.
And
give us a like and a follow,
just in the
guys.
Valley, it's going to be...
Valley alone, dude. It's going to be great. Alone, yeah.
That's your home turf.
Yeah, and I already talked to the guys from Santa Monica, and they're willing to let us go in and do our thing there as well. So we got some fun projects in the horizon. I'm really excited about.
Well, I'm excited to see those.
Thanks,
at some
man.
point.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming on,
man.
Derek.
No worries. Thanks again, everyone. Long-winded spiel. Give us a like and a listen and a subscribe.
And for the Geeky Bartender, if you guys are discovering us for the first time, we are on SoundCloud. I plan on having a recording of this up on YouTube, and I'm trying to get on Stitcher and all the other ones soon. So for mostly, that's like the next stage of my planning is just getting more places for you guys to listen. But if you guys like what we have to hear, if you guys like what you hear, give us a share. Tell your friends about us. If you guys have ideas for us, or if you guys want to be on our show, or have ideas for people that you would love to be on our show, please contact us at thegeekybartender@outlook.com. That is our official email address. But you can also find us on Patreon at The Geeky Bartender. or at KT Vindicare. If either of these two things, KT Vindicare is my online alias. You can find me there on any of those platforms as well. Please look us up. Please share with your friends. And then we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Next week. Next week should be a great guest if I can get it right. And if I can't get him, I'm going to be getting a second guest that's also going to be equally interesting.
Yeah.
So I look forward to it. Derek, thank you again for being on.
Thank you for having me, man.
Chris
Thank you so
Raba,
much for having me.
I know that duty called and you had to go and do your thing, but thank you for being on again, and I appreciate all of you guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of our listeners too, and I hope you guys have a good day.
Cheers.